If Chapter 1 Natsuki Rem. Under the radiant sky, Subaru squints his eyes at the sun's strong rays. A deafening cry can be heard. The voice belongs to a baby girl, her forceful crying filled to the brim with all the strength her tiny body can muster. Seeing her express her discomfort with the strength of her entire soul, Subaru wonders how it is that children can be so unbelievably energetic. And while thinking that, he shudders at how lacking in youth his thoughts have become. I've had a feeling I've been getting on lately, but it's pretty depressing to be consciously aware. Aren't I still a super lively young man? Super lively young man, my ass. Try looking at yourself a little more objectively. While clutching his hands dramatically, Subaru is bombarded with trash talk. Used to the verbal abuse, he sighs lightly and looks to his side. A young boy stands beside him, his eyes level with the sitting Subaru. Ignoring Subaru's silent stare, he adds, "Anyways, do something about Spiker already. Her crying is seriously getting on my nerves. No, I just can't go on anymore." After that last cruel remark, my naive heart is completely in tatters. Maybe I'll revert back to childhood and cry alongside Spiker. Please forgive your useless father. Who the hell's gonna forgive a grown man acting out in broad daylight like that? The boy retorts loudly at Subaru's childish sulking. And, as he yells, the baby cradled in his arms, Spiker, sucks in another mouthful of air. As the two men watch on helplessly, she once again explodes. Whoa. She's crying. Spiker's crying again. Hey Rigel, do something, damn it. You're her older brother. If you're playing that card, then you should be the one doing something about this. Among the crowded city streets, in a certain boulevard, two men endlessly pass back the responsibility of calming the baby. Passing townsfolk look to see what the commotion is about, see that it's these two clowning around, and proceed to casually ignore them with a face that says, "Oh, it's the same deal as always." As a result, the tired act of the crying baby, and the two men that make her cry, goes on. This girl's crying out her lungs and soul, and yet not a single person comes out to help. Damn, what a cruel and unreasonable world. Humanity has fallen so damn far, we don't have time for you to lament about the state of the goddamn world. If we can't stop Spiker's crying, when she comes back, what do you think she'll say? When who comes back, and what will they be doing? Well, that's obvious. It's Rigel, Subaru calls as they huddle for a moment. Nodding there. Heads in unison, Rigel first turns around. He stares dumbfoundedly, his jaw ajar. Subaru follows his line of sight. Hey, all done with the shopping? Yes, without delay. It looks like things were tough on your end though. Nah, Spiker's super energetic today. Once she starts walking and running around, I bet she's gonna grow up to the type that just flings around men at her own insane pace. Such a nefarious future, it makes me both nervous and excited. As Subaru chatters casually, Spiker, cradled in his arms, slowly opens her eyes and notices the woman now standing before her. Despite her weak upper body, she opens her small hand and extends her arm out to her. Sensing Spiker's desire, Subaru feels just a bit lonely. But well, ignoring her until she cries will just bring us back to square one. Here, take her. I have taken her. Despite his rough speech, Subaru passes the baby with incredible care and caution. He handles her like a valuable, transient treasure, bringing a tiny smile to the woman's face. The woman hugs the baby to her breast and carefully rocks her. Yes, what a useless father and older brother, aren't they?
Spiker needs to get bigger quickly so she can scold the two of them. Hey, let's not feed her ideas like that while she can't understand words, okay?
Subaru suddenly imagines being scolded on both sides by the two, hands on their hips, after saying or doing something stupid. It actually doesn't sound so bad. In fact, it's such a happy vision of the future that I'm tearing up. Well, I don't like it. Getting scolded by my little sister would ruin my dignity. The moment someone fools around with me, they have no dignity to ruin. Yes, I can see it. You will adore your little sister and spoil her far too much, to the point where she's scolding and spanking you without reserve. That will be your future, Don't push some weird future onto me just because you like getting scolded and spanked. There's no way I'll be like that, Subaru wags his finger tauntingly as Rigel retorts. But it isn't Subaru who is agitated by the boy's roars. It's the blue-haired woman who was watching over their bumbling. With a calm yet sharp voice, she calls the boy's name. Rigel. What kind of language have you been using in public? It brings your mother to tears. Yeah, but your mother also doesn't like your yeah but s either. Also, what you said just now was mistaken, she mercilessly scolds the stammering Rigel. She then turns to Spiker, who is finally calmed down, and smiles briefly. Your mother does not spank your father. Your father is always your mother's number one favorite person after all. Blushing, she makes a remark even more embarrassing than crying in public. Against his mother who so proudly makes such a declaration, Rigel finally throws in the towel. Subaru laughs nervously as the woman who watches over her family so happily caresses her hair. As if it was a fragment of the clear blue sky, Rem's beautiful long blue hair shimmers elegantly with the wind. In a small district in the country of Kararagai, at a clearing that may or may not qualify as a park, Subaru lumbers onto a nearby bench. The boy with short blue hair named Rigel played rambunctiously with his friends. While the way he spoke with his father was awful, Subaru thought in moments like these that he might actually be a cute kid. Now if only we could deal with those eyes that make him look like he could kill someone. We can't do that. Those scary eyes are also a part of Rigel. No matter how much fun he's having or how happy he is, strangers will always see his eyes and think he's in a bad mood or that he's some kind of delinquent. That's just who Rigel is. I can hear you. Also, why does mom's retort hurt even more than dad's? Rigel was playing freeze tag, literally ice oni in Japanese, a game that Subaru had popularized recently. Having been frozen, Rigel can only comment from afar. Subaru carelessly waves over to him while Rem waves ever so gently so as not to disturb Spiker. Rigel puffs his cheeks and wrinkles his face in turn. At that moment, Subaru can't help but think that Rigel looks just like he did in his own childhood albums. In other words, he's pretty much guaranteed to end up just like me. If I was him, I would definitely try to fight it. If I was told I'd be me 20 years, skilled in cooking and perfect in housework, supporting her husband with all her love and care, having such an ideal and wonderful wife. Is what you're talking about, yes? Who is that happy-go-lucky normie? Damn, he should just explode. Huh? Wait, that's me. Rem giggles lightly as Subaru slaps his head and sticks out his tongue. Rem, trying to calm herself by clearing her throat, glances sideways at Subaru's face. If you keep complimenting Rem like that, Rem might get carried away a little. Was I really complimenting you just now? All I did was not reject what you said. Though everything you said was basically completely true, Subaru knew that if he complimented her too freely, he'd get carried away with praise again and it'd be a mess. In such a public place as a park with kids running around, parents and neighbors were everywhere. Once he started sweet-talking with Rem, she would egg him on until their affection was tomorrow's talk of the town. That in and of itself wasn't too bad, Subaru thought as he relished the warm afternoon air. If he closed his eyes, the comfort of the sun's warm rays made him feel like he was floating. The exhaustion from working long, late hours felt like it was being washed away as his head wavered slightly from its weight. If you'd like, please rest on Rem's shoulder. Rem's lap is currently being occupied. Opening his eyes, Subaru finds his body already resting against Rem. There was a noticeable difference in their sitting heights. If he adjusted his neck, Subaru could comfortably rest his head on her shoulder. As he leaned, Subaru saw Spiker lying peacefully in Rem's arms. Her jet black hair from her father and the pretty shape of her fair face from her mother. A dear existence that lives day to day, ignorant of the world around her. Grr, Spiker. While you are my daughter, how dare you steal my precious sanctuary from me? I'll be giving you the tickle treatment later, dear. Please wait until nighttime before monopolizing Rem's breasts. Hey, let's be careful about the remarks we make in a public park.
/ broad daylight, okay. Rem's bold comment caused a wave of panic in Subaru.
But when he peered at her face, he saw that she was blushing fiercely. Really now, he thought. My wife is just way too cute, because Rem is loved by her dear every day. As Subaru flirts and Rem flirts in turn, they indulge in each other's loving smiles. Rem's giggling and Subaru's goofy laughter could be heard faintly from afar. Eventually getting embarrassed, Subaru nervously scratches his cheek. Then I guess I'll take you up on your offer, he says as he rests his head on Rem's shoulder. The sensation of the wind rustling Rem's blue hair against his cheek felt very pleasant to Subaru. Its scent wafted to his nose as he rubbed his cheek against her shoulder. Dear, that tickles. Oh, sorry. I guess I got a bit carried away because it felt so nice. I'll learn from Spiker and calm down. I'll leave getting carried away to Rigel. Wow, Rigel Sue a kid Tilda, I can hear you, stupid dad. Stop bringing me up all the time, Rigel. Your sister is sleeping at the moment. Please keep your voice down, goddammit. The frozen Rigel screams like a delinquent, but none of his family responds. To add insult to injury, no one's coming to unfreeze him either. At the moment, Rigel is thoroughly being teased. While Rigel's personality, speech, and actions are similar to his own, it comforts Subaru that at the very least the other kids don't bully him. At the same time, it doesn't feel like they accept him as one of their own, making Rigel's future admittedly not too bright. We should make sure Spiker doesn't turn out like that. Even though Rigel's like that, you have your mother's looks, so your future's definitely bright. All that's left is to pray you don't get caught by a useless guy like me. There isn't a person anywhere that could replace you. Rem's dear is the only one in the world. Laughing softly from his wife's loving remarks, a comfortable silence falls between them. A gentle breeze caresses them as Subaru savors the heat from Rem's body. Eventually, he carelessly drifts to sleep. Lately, the fatigue from laboring has built up in his body. Yet the precious moments spent with his family filled his days with bliss, bathing in the bright sunlight, watching his son being teased by his friends. Subaru rests against his wife as he succumbs to a light nap. What a wonderful, blissful moment, he thought. Subaru-kun, hearing his name, Subaru opens his eyes. Peering in the direction of the voice, he finds Rem turning her neck to face him. He sees himself in her clear blue eyes as they wordlessly bring their lips together, my name. It's been a while. Lately it's been dear or your father after all. Looking on at Rem, Subaru relaxes his face, yet Rem brings her lips to his once more. Her attitude reminds him of several years ago, the way she was from when they had just escaped. While she thought that he wouldn't have noticed, Subaru had watched over her more closely than she thought. Closing his eyes, Subaru feels the wind rushing past them. Today's shopping trip was in fact Rem's idea. Subaru had a general idea what her intentions were for this trip. After all, it's been 8 years since that day, huh? So you remembered after all, of course, to me. No, to us wasn't that day a huge turning point? There's no way I'd forget. There's no way I'd forget, the day he lost against fate. The day he threw away everything, the day he ran away from everything. The day when he intended to give up everything, but just couldn't give up one person. The decision from that day, and that girls love it, was because of those that right now Subaru is able to live like this. Subaru-kun, do you, that familiar way of calling him, which he intentionally stopped using after the two escaped to Kuraragai. In order to prove the bond of husband and wife to themselves and those around them. And also to try to build something distinct from the past they had escaped from. Until today, Subaru had not asked for the reason, nor did Rem ever tell him. Among the many things they left behind was this way of calling him. With a troubled face and a mix of emotions, she asks him, "Do you feel regret?" Regret? Yes, about running away. About giving up. About throwing away everything. About choose. If you say anything about choosing you, I'm going to get angry. I'll take Rigel and Spiker home straight away. Actually, never mind about Rigel. He can stay here. From afar, Subaru sees Rigel make a sour face, but Subaru's face tells him, we're having an important talk right now. He turns back to Rem and continues, you know, it's kind of late at this point, and honestly I've probably already told you this many times, tens of times, hundreds of times, so I don't know if it'll even mean much, yes? I love you more than anyone else in the world. You're the only one for me, and I'm the only one for you. And you're definitely not the kind of woman that a guy like me could get from giving up and compromising. Subaru moves towards Rem and softly flicks her forehead. A surprised Rem holds her forehead as Subaru moves his face in close. Just as I promised that day, everything I have is yours, I will serve you. I will devote myself to you. I will live just for you. And now, I suppose I'll live for our kids too. With his lips approaching past her nose, Rem closes her eyes as he steals her lips. Sharing their light kiss, Subaru's face hovers close enough to feel Rem's quickened breath. And with a mischievous smile that hadn't changed even with the passage of time, he says, so will this put you at ease? Rem is sorry. Rem is always so anxious. Because Rem keeps falling further and further in love with Subarukan. Every time it feels like things couldn't possibly be any happier, Subarukan always manages to make Rem even happier. Rem is so happy, and loves Subaru-kun so much, and that's why Rem is anxious. Tears well in her eyes and her chest shakes as Rem admits to him how happy she has become. Shaking her head, she rests her forehead against his, and they share in their body heat. Even though I can touch you right now, I'm always afraid I'll lose you. Don't worry. I won't ever let you go, and I won't go anywhere either. As long as I have your love, there's no way we'll ever be apart. Rem will never stop loving Subaru-kun. Good, then we'll always be together. I love you, Rem. While Rem's head is filled with thoughts and emotions, Subaru once again kisses her. His lips brush against her teeth as he pushes further against the surprised maiden. Their tongues entangle as they feel the sensation of their warm saliva. They stop there and part their lips. Rem breathes shallowly as Subaru points his finger upwards and continues, also, don't talk about it as if it was some sort of compromise. That would mean Rigel and Spiker were born not from love, but sympathy. Spiker is a crystallization of our love that we've been planning for years, and Rigel is the result of the fiery passion of our youth. It sure was hard when Rigel was born, in front of Subaru, who was scolding her with a hand on his hip. Rem fondly reminisced with a smile emerging on her face. Now deep in the past, Rem waved her finger as if tracing back the memories. After moving to Kararagai and finding a home and workplace, we were supposed to take our time getting things together and building our livelihood. Hey, but, you know, we were young so we lacked patience and, even though Subarukan should have been exhausted after coming home from work, you always got really lively right before bed. Hey, but, you know, we were young so we had too much stamina and, when the employment was officialized, Rem became pregnant around the same time. At the time, Rem's face practically turned blue. It's kind of painful to admit the mistakes made in the springtime of youth. In response to Rem's bold accusations, Subaru could only stare into the distance while muttering sheepishly. In the distance, Rigel, who was currently being treated as a mistake, showed a sour face, but he read the atmosphere and calmed down without saying anything. Quite a kid, Subaru thought. Subaru nodded at his son's remarkable growth. Beside him, Rem also looked on at her son's sour face and, with a small breath, continued, but when Rem was pregnant with Rigel, Rem was really, really happy. Well, of course I was happy too. When I first heard, my nose started running and I pissed myself a little. Then I wanted to make sure it wasn't a dream, so I asked you to punch me, and it was a complete bloodbath. It may have been because Rem was emotional at the time, but she had swung full force at Subaru, causing him to slam into the wall with such force that the entire building shook. If she hadn't unconsciously held back, it wouldn't have been strange for Subaru to have died outright. Leaving aside those memories, Subaru could clearly remember the time Rem told him she was pregnant. He also vividly recalled the feelings welling in his chest. However, Rem shook her head at Subaru's answer. He couldn't quite understand the meaning behind it, so he cocked his head in turn. The reason Rem was happy was somewhat different from the reason Subarukan was happy. The reason Rem was happy was because now Now Rem wouldn't have to worry about losing Subarukan. To Rem, Rigel is a definite bond between Rem and Subarukan. It sounds wrong that way, but when we had our first baby, it was also a link between us that would always exist. That's why Rem was so happy. Perhaps Rem had always struggled with this anxiety. After throwing away everything she held dear, just the two of them escaped to a completely new land. With no one and nothing to cling to but each other, Rem always struggled with the fear that she would someday lose Subaru as well. Her low self-confidence would prove an impressive match for Subaru's. For Rem, who rates herself strictly, her life with Subaru was both fantastically happy and yet incredibly anxiety-inducing. It was the birth of the new life between them that finally put an end to that uneasy time. Did you have a hard time believing? No, Rem believes in Subaru-kun more than anyone in the world. That's not it. I didn't ask if you believed in me. I was asking if you had trouble believing in yourself. Hearing Subaru's response, Rem takes a small breath and nods. To Rem, Subaru's existence was so very large. And yet, because she looks at herself so poorly, she worried that her own existence was but a small shadow next to his. But in a way, Subaru also felt the same. He had always felt that, when compared to himself, Rem was far too wonderful of a girl for him. It's so strange I can't help but laugh, Subaru thought as his face relaxed into a goofy grin. Rem sees this and puffs her cheeks. Never mind. Rem was being dumb. It can't be helped that you'd laugh at her. No, that's not it. I was just thinking that you and I are really very alike. And so then I thought that my wife is definitely the cutest in the world. Unprepared for Subaru's surprise attack, Rem freezes in surprise for a moment, and then explodes into a feverish blush. Watching her react like this, I really get the feeling that I love her, thought Subaru. More than anyone else in the world, I love Rem. I love her. I could scream it at the top of my lungs. Actually, in reality, he sometimes does. In the neighborhood, they're known for being an incredibly loving couple. Rigel, Spiker, Rem appears to lovingly call her children's names. But she shakes her head to say, no. She looks towards Subaru and says, they were both the name of stars, yes? From the place that Subarukan came from, they were how you called them. Yeah, my dad was basically a nut, the sort of sad human being who could barely read, but I thought that his idea to name me after a star was good. I really like it, my name. Subaru is also the name of a star from there. Back around elementary school, there was an assignment to investigate the origins of one's name, and it was then that Subaru learned of the history of his name. When he learned that he was named after one of the dancing stars of the night sky, he couldn't contain his excitement. Since then, while he couldn't keep interest in much of anything, he at least continued to gaze at astronomy charts in his spare time. He knew the names of stars by heart, and if a chance to name something came up, it was always an obvious choice how he'd do it. I'd always use the names of stars. With things like usernames on the internet, I'd always use stars as nicknames. In a sense, aren't these names shining? Rem doesn't know what Subarukan is talking about, but using the names of stars sounds beautiful. When the third one comes, we'll do just that. Isn't it a bit early to talk about a third? I mean, isn't Spiker still a baby? Aside from feeding, we can leave everything to Rigel. Why do you think Rem said to wait until Rigel was bigger before having our next child? You know, usually it seems like I'm mainly the one bullying him, but don't you actually go at him way harder? Pondering the daily verbal abuse his son suffers, Subaru gets up and brushes himself off. As Rem looks up toward him, he casually stretches his back and shakes his hips. I think it's about time we head home and put away the groceries. Plus, there's too many eyes around here to flirt to my heart's content, yes. Right now Rem is in the mood to flirt with all her strength and passion. I wonder if my libido will be able to keep up with the stamina of an Oni. Muttering to himself sheepishly, Subaru extends his hand to Rem, sitting on the park bench. Rem slowly grabs his hand, but Subaru suddenly pulls her up. The girl makes an audible wah as he skillfully catches her in his arms. He hugs her along with Spiker and savors their warmth. All right, let's go back. To our home, that is, yes dear. Holding the groceries in one hand, he grasps Rem's hand in the other. Walking half a step behind Subaru, Rem snuggles with him as they walk. Hey, my son, frozen for an eternity in a winter wonderland. Watching your stagnant game of freeze tag was supremely boring, so we'll be heading home. Go stay at a friend's house for the night, so you're flatly kicking me out for the night? Plus, what kind of parents come to a park in broad daylight to kiss anyway? Ha, you're just jealous. Sorry, Rigel. This Rem belongs only to me, so annoying. While Subaru laughs proudly with his head held high, Rigel yells back with a demonic face. But seeing his father only get more festive, Rigel takes a deep breath and shakes his head. Calm down me. Don't get caught up in your old man's pace. Calm down, Tilda. All right, I've calmed down. So, what were you talking about with Mom? Oh, we were talking about how your name comes from a star and stuff like that. You know, our first idea was to name you Vega. That sounds strong as hell. Why didn't you? Well, it sounds strong, right? Like you would grow up to be really strong, and then you'd be too strong to handle in your rebellious phase, so I decided against it. Even though you'll eventually surpass me in strength, the dad in me said he didn't want to lose to his son. Though soon, you thought about all this for a baby who was only a few days old? Rigel flails about after hearing Subaru's casual banter. Then, hey, Rigel's moving. You're breaking the rules of freeze tag. Despite ignoring him completely while he was frozen, the other children quickly pointed out his mistake the second he moved. Rigel's in shock as he stands there stunned. Subaru pats him on the back and says, those who break the rules of freeze tag suffer a penalty game. You get tickled by the others until you can't even cry anymore. Good luck. What the hell are you saying with such a serious face? Hey, what are you, guys? Wait, stop for a second. Don't just listen to everything this guy says. Wait, you are. Hordes of children descend upon Rigel and chase him about. Rigel tried to escape, but they eventually corner him. From there they grab his arms and push him to the ground. With no chance to resist, countless fingers begin tickling him. So long, kiddo. You were a good son. It was your father who was the bad one. Rigel, your mother and father have some important business to attend to, so please stay at a friend's house for the night. Also, the use of your horns is forbidden. And don't let your clothes get torn. I'll remember this, you heartless parents. As a mountain of fingers tickle him relentlessly, Rigel's forced laughter can be heard even from a distance. Seeing her older brother in such a state, Spiker raises her voice in excitement and delight. Well, seems like she's got a promising taste, Subaru thought. Her position in the family will be a lot more interesting. To their beloved son, whom they cannot help but adore, they showed a somewhat unusual way of expressing their love that day. Subaru pulled Rem's hand along as he walked towards the precious place where his family lives, the place filled with peace and happiness that they call home. Subaru-kun, Feeling a tug on his arm, Subaru stops and turns around toward Rem. At that moment, a strong gust of wind blows about them. Subaru shuts his eyes involuntarily, opening them again after the winds had died down. Rem's long blue hair was being carried by the wind, glimmering brilliantly as if it was blending into the sun's shining rays. Long ago, Rem had started growing out her hair. For whom she had grown it, Subaru now had a good idea. And when he thought of long-haired women, the very first to pop up in his mind was of course the one in front of him, the one he loved most in the entire world. With her blue hair silently flowing behind her, and their beloved child held in her arms, Rem chased after Subaru with a brilliant smile on her face. Above all else, it was Rem's smile that stirred such feelings of fondness and love within him. Right now, Rem is the happiest in the entire world. If Chapter 2 Oni and happiness. No way. Is this for real? Amongst the crowded plaza, Subaru raises his voice in disbelief. Eyes rife with excitement, he can't help but make a scene. In his line of sight was a single market stall. The brown-clothed shopkeep handling it widens his eyes at Subaru's sudden overreaction. But Subaru, overwhelmed, doesn't even notice the shocked shopkeep. Lips trembling with excitement, he even neglects to wipe the sweat dripping from his forehead, causing Subaru to taste some oddly bitter saliva. Caught like a deer in headlights, Subaru's feet stop squarely in front of the stall. "Hey, what's the matter, standing around like a mook all of a sudden? If we don't get home soon you'll end up buying some useless crap again." The child walking ahead grimaces as he reluctantly stops for Subaru. Folding his arms behind his head, the boy's sharp, dagger-like stare makes his displeasure seem very obvious. And yet, while his leering suggests he's out to kill, Subaru knew he wasn't necessarily in a bad mood. After all, Subaru, with his own set of sharp eyes, was practically a veteran in accidentally scaring off strangers. Live strong. What the hell are you suddenly pitying me for? Wait. I don't wanna hear it. I know it's just gonna depress me. Don't tell me. I said don't tell me, goddammit. Seeing you all worked up like this, I'm really looking forward to the future. Really, you're the best for bullying like this. You might seriously be a prodigy. Blessed by the very gods with this divine gift. Like hell I want a gift like that. If the gods have the time to be giving out useless crap, then at least give me something more useful, damn it. The boy shouts back at Subaru's taunts, his face twisted fiercely. The boy with short blue hair looks up to the sky as if grieving. Subaru merely nods at his usual overreaction, then proceeds to face the shopkeep who had been watching their useless banter with a blank face. "Hey, how much are these?" Huh? Subaru grins mischievously at the shopkeeper who was obviously taken aback. Subaru's evil glare and exposed teeth puts a lump in the shopkeeper's throat as he tries his best not to shriek, although considering the exchange just then, his own reaction seemed rather trivial. Subaru clears his throat and points at a particular item in the stall. "I want these. Give me some. I'll take, say, 3 bags of them." "Why yes. Thanks for your patronage." Hey. Wait a second. What the heck are you buying all of a sudden? If we buy unnecessary stuff on the way home, we won't just be wasting money, we'll be punished within an inch of our lives. The second the shopkeep accepts Subaru's purchase, the boy's face fills with fear. He pulls sheepishly on the hem of Subaru's coat, practically begging him to reconsider. Taking hold of his hand, Subaru crouches to the boy's eye level and reassures him, "Don't worry, I'm not using any of our shopping money. This'll come out of my own personal pocket money. It's my hard-earned allowance that I've slowly been saving up. I'm sure you know how restrictive I am about using it." Yeah, well. You don't spend on alcohol or smokes, so that just leaves. I guess splurging it all on women? Hey, you're definitely trying for a serious misunderstanding here, aren't you? Who the hell did you get this awful personality from, huh? I'd really like to know. I'm pretty much certain it's hereditary. Sadly. Subaru shakes his head with grief at the boy's callous declaration. As he brandishes the bird with his left hand, Subaru grabs the exposed finger by the joint, and the boy mutters a short before wailing in pain. As these two carry on, the shopkeep dutifully fills the bags and gives a brief, nervous laugh. "You boys sure are friendly. Watcha, father and son? Hey, after all that, you really think he's my son? Man, merchants sure have some useless eyes. What do you think, Rigel?" After looking at our faces, it'd be harder not to figure it out. Still locked in a death grip, Rigel shouts rebelliously against the pain. Hearing that, Subaru admits defeat with a casual "well, I guess that's true." At that point, the bagging was finished. The shopkeep brings forward 3 small sacks while Subaru pulls out the pouch holding his allowance. "All right, how many yen will that be?" "Dunno what yen you're talking 'bout, altogether it'd be 16 coppers. Then 3 silvers should do. I don't need the change. Keep it. Shoot. Generous ain't ya? I'll take ya up on it. Thanks." The shopkeep makes big, dramatic gestures as he happily accepts the silvers. Watching the exchange and their carefree smiles, Rigel grimaces. Between Subaru's death grip and the fact they were giving up the change, it was obvious that Rigel was upset. Don't worry, it's all good. Today I got a hold of something really nostalgic. Just consider it a bonus for bringing me a little excitement. Besides, being too stingy will get you punished someday. Excitement and nostalgia, what are you even talking about? Rising up, Rigel, while still clearly discontent, asks curiously about the purchase. In response, Subaru ruffles his short hair with full force. Gwah, Rigel roars with further discontent. It's got a little something to do with the missus. It reminds me of an old custom from my hometown, Subaru replies, a mischievous smile emerging on his face. And so, you two somehow ended up spending how much? The blue-haired maiden sighs lightly at Subaru's explanation. The second Subaru and Rigel had returned, she came out to welcome them both home. She apparently came from the kitchen, as her white apron had faintly wet splotches, showing where she had hurriedly dried her hands. In his spare time, Subaru covered her apron with decorative patches and embroidery. Seeing the wet splotches all a careful distance from his handiwork, Subaru is struck with a surprise attack of embarrassing affection. Geez, what are you laughing about? Rem still hasn't received a satisfying answer. Without really thinking, Subaru's face loosens at the sight of her, yet, the long, blue-haired Rem was thoroughly upset. Looking ready to dish out a frightening punishment, she lays her eyes on Rigel, who stands beside Subaru. Rigel too. You know your father is erratic like this. If you don't keep it together, what is Rem to do? Yes, I'm incredibly sorry for. Wait a second, this is just weird. Even if I calm down and think carefully, it's still just plain weird. Why is the child being scolded for his careless parent? Isn't it supposed to be the other way around? Wait a minute, Rigel. Take a deep breath, now exhale. Yeah, like that, slowly. Repeat that 5 more times, and make sure to close your eyes. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there you go. Have you calmed down? Yup, you're calm now. Alright, so now that you're calm, go ahead and apologize to your mother. I freaking meditated till I hit my Zen state and reflected on my actions, but I still don't see how I've done anything wrong. Rather than calm down, Rigel goes red in the face with anger, raging toward his room. Rigel, Rem calls out his name as he rushes past her, but he keeps moving. Or so it seems until he had run up to the end of the corridor. What? Rigel's feet stop. Despite everything else, Rigel always listens to what his parents had to say to the very end. Rem, fully aware that Rigel would stop for him, carries on with her usual cool demeanor. Snacks have been prepared for you up in your room, so please have them after washing up. And don't forget to let Spiker know you're home. Got it. Thanks for the food. As part of Subaru and Rem's lessons on mannerisms, it was an ironclad law in the Natsuki household to say thanks for the food before meals. No matter how frustrated or rebellious he was, Rigel would always remember this rule. Seeing the rare child in him, the couple looked toward him with fond eyes. In an act of petty rebellion, however, Rigel still slams the door as he heads upstairs. Rem turns back toward Subaru. Do you think we teased him a bit too much? Nah, in terms of mother and son conversations, that was par for the course. Even though he acts like that, at his core, he at least doesn't hate it. That brat, he really is just like how I was as a kid. I can basically see right through him. Subaru affectionately pets Rem, comforting her as he removes his shoes and enters his home. He collects the day's purchases that Rigel had tossed haphazardly, though in reality, he let it prop up against the wall so it wouldn't fall over, and, practically by habit, Subaru walks side by side with Rem to the living room. As he props the 3 small bags onto the table alongside the groceries, Rem sneaks a peek at their contents. They really are completely normal beans. Yeah, that they are. What, did you think when I said beans, I was somehow hinting something more naughty and erotic? Man, my dear wife might seem calm and level-headed, but she's actually pretty active and aggressive after all. Rem simply doesn't hesitate with giving and receiving love. Furthermore, when it comes to embarrassing displays of affection, Rem thinks Subaru-kun is just as guilty. Oh, when has a shy, naive-natured nice guy such as myself ever done something so shameless? As Subaru poses flamboyantly, his chin on his fist and exposed white teeth flashing a smile, Rem briefly gazes at him with a charmed yet somewhat dumbfounded face. With her face still red with embarrassment, she averts her eyes. When we celebrated our anniversary, Subaru-kun bought a huge number of bouquets, and for Rem's birthday Subaru-kun and Rigel put up decorations all over the house, and when Spiker was born, Subaru-kun convinced the townsfolk to hold an entire parade. Subaru-kun always spends way too much on other people. I use my allowance to make my wife and family happy. Isn't that basically spending for myself? In the end, I'm spending my allowance for the sake of my own happy life, aren't I? Subaru's earnest answer paints Rem's white face red with shyness and embarrassment. The sudden wave of emotions is too much for Rem, as happy tears faintly well. Raising her face, Rem quickly grabs Subaru's sleeve to mop her moist eyes. Her sudden movements surprise Subaru. He lets out a small "Ewa" as he loses his balance. Rem stands on her toes to support his weight, facing him as if they're just to catch him. "What's up with you all of a sudden?" And then for a brief moment, they let their lips meet, their tongues entangled in a sweet embrace before finally parting. Subaru's heart beats feverishly after Rem's sudden display of affection, but he somehow manages a facade of calmness on his face. After savoring his tongue with her soft, sweet lips, Rem, with a faintly sensual look on her face, answers, "Subaru-kun is the one at fault here. Saying such embarrassing things so suddenly like that. Did I really say something that embarrassing?" Subaru-kun doesn't realize how much his words and actions affect Rem. Subaru-kun should be more careful. Rem doesn't mind if it's at home, but if Subaru-kun does this to Rem outside, Rem will be troubled. As a blushing Rem mutters back sheepishly, Subaru's facade of calmness and his very last threads of reason seem ready to snap. Subaru anxiously sneaks a glance at his wife. He definitely wasn't alone in his hot, unsteady breathing. As the atmosphere between the two lovers reaches a boiling point, whoa. Spiker's crying. Someone. Anyone. Help. The cries of their beloved son and daughter shook the house like a small tremor. Subaru and Rem look each other in the face, and then automatically dash off. Without even a word, the two take each other's hands as they rush over to their crying baby daughter. "By the way, what were those beans for?" Subaru-kun said they were for an old custom from his hometown. "Oh yeah, did I not say?" With Rem wrapped around his arm and her weight pleasantly pressing against him, Subaru casually answers with an innocent laugh. "So back in my hometown, there was this tradition where we'd throw beans at bad oni to get rid of them, you see." At that moment, the bright smile Rem had shown Subaru seemed to freeze in shock. "You got it all wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. That wasn't my intention at all, I swear. He's horrible, isn't he, Spiker, your father? Oh, it must be that your father has come to hate your mother. If not, then why in the world would he buy beans for getting rid of Oni? It must be some roundabout way of telling Rem something." To Subaru-kun, Rem is just, "There's no way that's true. If someone asked me to choose between Rem and Rigel, I wouldn't hesitate for even a second to choose Rem. You shitty dad." The family of four makes a huge commotion, its members chasing after each other in circles around the room. In the lead, a sulking Rem cradles Spiker in her arms and traces circles, cheeks puffed to their max. Second in line, Subaru desperately chases after her, apologizing profusely. And at the end of the pack, Rigel, who isn't heartless enough to leave outright, yells after Subaru with his face twisted in anger. Wait, I get it, stop for a second. I'll admit that what I just said wasn't quite right.
Okay, so, if someone asked me to choose between Rem and Rigel, I'll hesitate for a little while and then choose Rem.
It's not about how long you took to get to that decision, goddammit. Don't get me involved in your lovers' quarrels. Rigel, what kind of language are you using against your father? Also, if you keep angrily thrashing about, Spiker will start crying again. Please keep quiet. I don't want to hear that from the angriest person in this house right now. Rigel continues to roar rebelliously. At once, Subaru and Rem both put a finger to their lips and make a sh sound. Mortified, Rigel drops out of their absurd chase. The remaining two, Subaru and Rem, seem to chase after each other's backs endlessly, circling around an agitated Rigel sitting in the middle. Chasing out Oni was just an expression. Back in my hometown they were, let's see. Oni was sort of like a collection of bad things. Things like disease and poverty and unpopularity were all bundled together and called Oni. The bin tossing was a tradition for getting rid of those bad things, so it's not like we were antagonizing actual Oni. Horrible, you're just horrible. Subaru-kun, you even once said things like being fanatical like an Oni, and I love Oni just to woo Rem. It seems that Subaru-kun has completely forgotten the feelings from that time. I'm telling you that's not true. With that final retort, Subaru suddenly stops and turns around. Having not expected their circular chase to suddenly end, Rem falls into Subaru's breast with a startled look. Bringing her face even further into his breast, Subaru uses both arms to grab her in a bear hug, preventing Rem's escape. Forgetting my feelings for you? That's just plain impossible. Rem, you're my #1 favorite person in the entire world. Don't tell me you forgot that. Subaru-kun. Feeling his passionate gaze on her, Rem's eyes soon grow moist. It has been 9 whole years since the first time the two had met. In that time, Rem became a mother, and the young weakness in her was shed away, revealing the fortitude of a strong woman. And yet, when she falls into Subaru's arms like this, Rem can't help but revert to that time long ago when she was brimming with love and longing for him. Embarrassed with herself, Rem closes her eyes as a sweet sensation tickles her lips. Subaru-kun. Oh yes, Rigel. Please take Spiker for your mother.
Yeah, okay.
Subaru-kun. Between Subaru and Rem, Spiker had been experiencing a rather claustrophobic situation. Now with both hands free, Rem flings them towards Subaru's chest and rubs her soft cheeks against him. In Subaru-kun's eyes, is Rem still Subaru-kun's #1 favorite person? Is that even a question? I wouldn't even be exaggerating if I said that half my entire existence was my love for Rem and the other half was my devotion for Rem. Geez, Subaru-kun is always spouting such nonsense. Embracing each other, Subaru and Rem exchange their deepest feelings. Witnessing the scene of his parents making up, Rigel deftly plugs Spiker's ears. What a far ass. Rigel screams with the force and strength of his entire body. Dashem, the bin tossing festival. Rem has never heard of such a tradition. Well, I guess around here that's gotta be the case. To be honest, I can't seem to match the local calendar with my hometown's, so I'm not actually sure when it even is around here. To properly celebrate the festival, they would have wanted to wait until February 3rd. But, while this world had the same 4 seasons, and a year was even the same 365 days, the names of the months were so outrageously different that, even after 9 whole years, Subaru still couldn't figure out which was February. All he knew was that since it was mildly cold out, it had to be somewhere between January and March. Anyway, without further ado, let's get the bin tossing festival started. Oh, but rather than chase away actual Oni, we'll be chasing away all the bad stuff that gets referred to as Oni. Let's do it for our family's future happiness. Well, Subaru-kun says that, but 3 out of our family are actual Oni. With the inkling of a bitter smile on her face, Rem protrudes a single white horn from her forehead, appealing for the Oni. Just as Rem said, Rigel and Spiker are indeed half Oni. Having inherited Oni blood, horns have even sprouted on their foreheads. Rigel can consciously bring his out, while Spiker's tiny horn occasionally emerges from her particularly enthusiastic crying. As the 4 sit in a circle for their family meeting, Subaru can feel a lack of enthusiasm in his Oni family members. Dismayed, he tries for a diversion, Tappei On. Subaru extends his hand toward Rem's horn, gently rolling his fingers about the white protrusion. While the structure of the horn was quite rigid, its surface was surprisingly lukewarm and smooth to the touch. And above all else, apparently the horn was a sensitive spot of sorts. As Subaru's fingers play with Rem's horn. /an, MNGH. Wah, wait, Subaru-kun. The children, they're watching. You'd be a little more convincing if you weren't snuggling up to me right now. As Rem lovingly brings her body towards Subaru's, she feels more reminiscent of a small, affectionate animal than a sexy housewife. Subaru brings Rem to his lap as he continues petting her horn. Turning to Rigel, hey Rigel, what do you think? Aside from you normies should just go explode? Well, I dunno but. Dad, I don't really get why you wanna do this so badly. Rigel glares harshly at Subaru as he comforts Spiker in his arms. To his son's criticism, Subaru gives an audible hair and makes big, exaggerated nods. The reason's very simple actually. This is really the only holiday about Oni I could think of. Also, I didn't mention it before, but there's a bit more to this festival. As we chase away the bad things we call Oni, we'll also be inviting happiness into our home. Basically, it's a sort of ritual where we do away with the bad while praying for a safe, happy future. At that point, Rem had curled up into a ball on Subaru's lap. While softly stroking her small back, Subaru points his finger upward, to Natsuki Subaru. Family is the most important thing in the world, and the fact that we have ties with Oni isn't something I can or want to ignore. Besides, it's not like Oni have to always be antagonized. Meaning? Technically we're supposed to say out with the Oni. In with fortune. While we throw beans around. But lately it's been popular to bring both Oni and fortune into the household. That's just putting the cart before the horse. Bringing in good and bad things, what happened to the stuff from earlier? The way of thinking must have changed. And I don't think it's really a bad thing either. Subaru explains as his fingers gently trail through Rem's long hair. Rem's back faintly quivers at the ticklish sensation, melting Subaru's gruff face into a fond smile. Chasing them out because they're Oni is just unreasonable. After all, it might just be possible to befriend an Oni. And then do erotic things with an Oni, and then marry an Oni, and then build a loving family with an Oni. Yeah, somehow, I think they're all possible. If the world changed its way of thinking like that, I think it'd be great. I've always really liked Oni, and now my wife is an Oni, so I'm in paradise. Maybe people have started accepting the good with the bad, and this change in the Oni's treatment reflects that. Just as good and bad fluctuates in the world and day-to-day life, perhaps the way people feel about Oni is changing. Some even declare Oni as Mo characters. Having experienced Oni firsthand, Subaru knows them better than anyone. In his mind, there isn't even a shred of doubt. His wife is the cutest. In with the Oni. In with fortune too. Say what? In with the Oni. In with fortune too. Let's bring them both in. To me, Oni and fortune are both signs of happiness. Being a bit greedy and going for both. How's that sound? Seeing Subaru shrug casually, Rigel shapes his mouth to say something back, but eventually couldn't find anything to say and slinks back down. As Subaru laughs at his son's speechlessness, a smiling Rem, still nestled in his lap, giggles with a foo-foo-foo sound. That peculiar way Subaru-kun thinks, Rem loves it. Let's do it, the bin-tossing festival. Oh, finally up for it, I see. Alright, let's strike while the iron's hot. Maybe after this we can share the festival with everyone else too. Rem tilts her face towards Subaru as he lifts her up. She gives him a puzzled look, to which Subaru answers, you know, like back when I showed the kids how to play freeze tag, and it spread like wildfire. Kuraragai just feels kind of intimate and familiar. I always get the feeling it's just like my old hometown. Subaru-kun does say that occasionally. Is the feeling really that strong? I said it a few times without really thinking much of it, but the villages here also elect their leaders by popular vote. Or something like that. And there are even holidays just like April Fools and Christmas. Because having many events and holidays keeps things exciting and interesting. Rem thinks, that's definitely part of it, but I feel like there's also more to it than that. Well, it doesn't really matter right now. Kuraragai was undeniably a wondrous place to live. Together with Rem, it has been 9 years since they immigrated here. Indeed, without the flood of support and kindness from its inhabitants, Subaru and Rem could not possibly have done as well as they did. Even now though, they still had their difficulties with the tricky Kuraragai dialect, which was reminiscent of Kansai dialect. Hey, I brought the beans. If we're doing this, let's get it over with already. Aha, finally coming around are you, my son? Even though you were being all negative earlier, deep inside you just couldn't help getting all crazy and excited. Wow, Rigel sue a kid, I'm still better than a stupid dad who worries his wife and kids to death. Rigel roughly forces a bag into both Subaru and Rem's hands, keeping one for himself. Now facing each other, the two Oni look towards Subaru for what to do next. Nodding, he stuffs his hand into the bag and pulls out a single bin. It's simple. Just chant out with the Oni. In with fortune. Well, except we'll be bringing the Oni in. Yeah, let's do that instead. So the beans. Does Rem throw them at the Oni? Mom? That violent look you're giving your son is genuinely terrifying him. Well, technically, but don't do it so seriously, alright? Actually, please be gentle. After ensuring everything was set, the bin tossing festival begins. Facing off against each other, a bin in each hand, alright, take that. In with the Oni. In with fortune. In with the Oni. In with fortune. In with the, hey wait, Spiker don't cry. I said don't cry. Hey, stop for a second, why, stop with the beans. Back and forth, the room is filled with such exchanges as beans fly chaotically all over. Subaru bears a refreshing energy and gusto. Rem, who felt embarrassed at first, quickly casts off her shame and laughs innocently. Rigel, who for some reason bore the fatal handicap of handling Spiker, fights against an almost desperate struggle. Yeah. In with the Oni. In with fortune. With the Oni themselves as family, and a home filled to the brim with happiness, this is the way the Natsuki household celebrates the bin-tossing festival. With a loving Oni wife by his side and yet more Oni as children, Subaru enjoys a truly new form of the festival with his precious family. This is just bliss, he thought. Rogue beans scatter about the room, the corridor, all over the house. Just thinking about the ensuing cleanup would put a serious damper on the soul. But anyone moping about cleanup instead of enjoying this chaotic moment wouldn't be quite right in the head. They laugh, and laugh, and laugh some more as beans shoot across the room. For the sake of being together with the beloved Oni, and for the sake of everlasting happiness, they toss beans. Subaru-kun, before he realized it, Rem's face had closed in on Subaru. As Subaru drops his gaze towards her, Rem approaches him, her flushed face showing him a brimming smile. Today and every day from now on, will Subaru-kun please happily embrace both Rem and Fortune? Saying that, Rem jumps into his open arms. Subaru hugs her in turn as he replies, I told you, didn't I? Building a future together, hand in hand with an Oni, that's always been my lifelong dream. With the happiness of this moment, as well as the promised happiness of tomorrow, unshakably rooted in his heart, Subaru whispers back his reply with a limitless passion. Damn, he sure just does whatever he feels like. Ada, what, you're hungry? But no, you can't eat them. Dad said you're supposed to eat your age in beans. Spiker's not even one yet, and you don't even have teeth to eat them with anyway. I'll eat them in your place. You dare, don't look so sour. You know, when you make that face, you look just like how Mom does when she's sulking to Dad. Damn, once Spiker starts walking around and stuff, I'm not looking forward to my place in the family hierarchy. Oh, Bar? Go back inside? Don't talk crazy, we can't go back right now. All that stuff about bin tossing and the festival, And after trying to look cool in front of Mom, they're definitely still flirting around in there. Out with the Oni. My ass. I bet he just wanted me out so he could flirt to his heart's content. Adar. / what, are you backing him up too? First with Mom, now with Spiker, does Dad emit some sort of Oni attracting pheromone or something? I don't believe this shit. Ada, Adau. Huh? Why are you petting my cheek like you're trying to comfort me? No, you got it all wrong. It's not like I like Dad or anything. Even among the Oni, even among the outsiders of the Oni, I'm still an outsider. It wouldn't faze me even if all the Oni in the world fell for him. I'd still be a member of the anti-shitty dad faction. Damn. Screw this. Come on, we're going Spiker. I figure if we take a short walk around the neighborhood, even those two will eventually finish their flirting. And I'm saying this now, but it's not like I'm doing this to give them some time for themselves. I told you that's not it. Ada. Damn it. The weather sure is nice today. If Chapter 3 Fortune Roll Rhapsody. When Rigel sees what awaits him in the living room, he suddenly wants nothing more than to turn and run. Deep in his soul, there burns an intense desire to abandon everything and run home. Unfortunately, this is his home. There is simply no running from his cruel destiny. Fuga fuga? Fuga fuga foo, ga, foo, ga fuga, shut it with your fuga fugas. What crazy cult ritual is it this time? Do you ever think how your son feels? When he comes home, and his dad is running around fuga fuga-ing with a pole of all things stuffed in his mouth? As Subaru stands and ambles toward Rigel, mouth still stuffed, Rigel rants, spit flying everywhere. As the target of his son's rebellious tantrum, Subaru slinks his shoulders. Fuga fuga. Would you quit it with the fuga fugas already? Fuga foo. Geez, what a brat. You know, if you're always this uptight, you'll eventually regret it. Kids need to play while they're young. Once you're an adult, you'll worry about people's opinions and start restraining yourself. / when you say that, it sounds completely unconvincing. How old are you? How much longer are you gonna keep playing? When will you gain this so-called ability to worry about people's opinions? Despite approaching his 30s, Natsuki Subaru doesn't show any sign of slowing down. He even plays with kids Rigel's age, causing the comparatively mature Rigel intense embarrassment. This boy wishes more than anything for his father to act his age. Then again, if he actually did, Rigel would worry that his father was gravely ill. So, what sort of weird festival did you come up with this time? Hold on, my son, are you actually an Esper? So, you've somehow gained the ability to read my mind. If not, then how could you ever see my actions as part of a festival? It's more like I'm praying it's for a festival. My sanity couldn't take it if you casually welcomed me home with a thick pole shoved in your mouth for no reason. Just tell me what's all this about. Rife with complaints, Rigel picks up the mysterious object Subaru was carrying in his mouth. He finds it surprisingly soft and flexible. Rigel quickly uncovers its identity. A sushi roll? Yup, a sushi roll. You look like you want one. I got it. If you want it so badly, go ahead and chow down. Luckily, that's just one of the prototypes. I've already set aside the rolls for the main event, so you can have that one as a snack. / even if I was hungry, I'm not gonna eat something that spent any time in my dad's mouth. Maybe if it was Mom or Spiker. Hey, isn't 8 years old a bit early to hate on your old man this hard? At your age, even I respected my dad. Wait, did I? Did I? How would I even know? Anyway, what's this festival already? And what main event? Hounded by an impatient Rigel, Subaru shrugs his shoulders and laughs. He points out a plate on the living room table with homemade sushi rolls stacked neatly on top. Isn't it obvious? After the bin tossing festival, yes, it's the Ihomaki challenge. Ihomaki, is it? What kind of festival would that be? Rem, after coming home from shopping, listens to Subaru's explanation. She tilts her head curiously as she cradles a drowsy Spiker in her arms. As Rem speaks, Spiker's small hands lightly grasp at the fair maiden's long blue hair. With all members accounted for, the Natsuki household sits in the living room, surrounding the plate of rolls. Remember the bean tossing festival? By tossing beans, we took in happiness while getting rid of misfortune. Of course. Rem thought Subaru-kun was trying to throw her away. Rem's maiden heart was deeply, strongly afflicted. This incredible sadness, it will not heal easily. Please take Rem on a date. With upturned eyes, Rem pretends to sulk as Subaru smiles wryly. His cute wife's request. As her husband, accepting is both his natural-born duty and his happiest privilege. It'll be my pleasure. Let's see, I'm free tomorrow, so let's do it then. Speaking of which, they just finished remodeling the spirit shrine at the edge of town. It's really something now. Yes. And after Subaru-kun started embossing couples' vows onto its walls, visitors started flocking to the shrine from all over. With her husband's work going so well, Rem can hold her head high. We're married already, but how about we go add our vows too? It'll be just the two of us. Don't worry, Spike'll be fine. She's got her Siscon-afflicted brother to watch over her. Subaru-kun. Rem is so happy. Rem will look forward to tomorrow's date. Can we get back to the main topic already? As his parents plan out their date, an impatient Rigel finally explodes, but despite his sudden outburst, Subaru and Rem, used to his tantrums, hardly react at all. Even Spiker seems unfazed, her sleepy face unchanging. Rigel's yells echo pointlessly throughout the house. Hey Rigel, don't shout so suddenly like that. You know, if you're too hot-blooded while you're young, once you're older, the veins in your head might explode from stress. Shut up. They'll explode even if I hold it in. So I might as well shout. Rigel, what sort of language are you using against your father? Your mother hopes you don't speak like this outside as well. If Rigel always acts so angry, everyone from friends to strangers will avoid you. You need to become a more wonderful person like your father. Oh, but Rigel could never possibly hope to win against Subaru-kun. Try not to be too depressed about it. Your comforting is depressing me. What did I ever do to you? Bullied by his own parents, Rigel throws himself at the floor and collapses into a heap. Subaru and Rem giggle as Rigel falls into complete sulking mode. As Rem readjusts a sleeping Spiker in her arms, Subaru clears his throat to resume. Well anyway, with it being Rigel's dying wish and all, let's get back to the Ihomaki. For the bin-tossing festival, we invited happiness and chased out misfortune. This Ihomaki challenge and the bin-tossing festival are both part of a holiday called Setsubun. The Ihomaki challenge is a more minor event though. A different event from the same holiday? Exactly. Back home, the East and West did things totally differently, you see. The bin-tossing festival and the Ihomaki challenge were part of those differences. The East celebrated the bin-tossing festival while the West did the Ihomaki challenge. But there's no such thing as too much of a good thing, so I thought we'd try both. Yes, as expected of Subaru-kun. The way Subaru-kun unhesitantly takes the best of everything is wonderful as well. Rem praises Subaru, clapping softly to avoid waking Spiker, then, putting a finger to her cheek as she tilts her head to the side, so if we needed beans for the bin-tossing festival, the Ihomaki challenge uses these sushi rolls? Well, we actually could have used a few more things for the bin-tossing festival. I already got that shop to stock more beans for next year. But I also want to make some more elaborate preparations like getting an oni mask and oni pants for me to wear. When it came to enjoying festivals to their fullest, Natsuki Subaru's energy and dynamism knew no limits. A spellbound Rem gazes fondly as her husband exhibits his needlessly hot passion. After briefly letting his thoughts run wild, he shakes his head. No. We're talking about Ihomaki right now. Just as Rem says, instead of beans, we have these sushi rolls. Where I call from, this kind of sushi roll is called an Ihomaki. Rem, just from looking, what do you notice? Well, it's very long and thick and black. One more time please, dash. It seems to be very long and thick and black. My cute, honest wife can sometimes be unknowingly erotic. Deeply moved, Subaru struggles to keep a straight face as Rem returns an innocent, puzzled look. Seeing as this wasn't particularly wholesome education, Subaru puts on a serious face and gets back to the sushi rolls. These thick sushi rolls are called taimaki. Unfortunately, Kararagai doesn't have any customs about ihomaki, so I made them myself. They're actually pretty easy. This faintly sour scent, this is vinegary, yes. Vinegared rice. It's definitely the ideal rice for sushi. Next time, we should try it with some raw fish. Putting that aside for now, the recipe's really simple. You just take dried seaweed and vinegared rice and wrap 7 different fillings inside. That's it. Is there any special meaning attached to having 7 fillings? Peering at the ihomaki's rainbow-colored fillings, Rem asks a natural question. Glad you noticed, as expected of my wife. Yeah, that's an important point. Ihomaki are meant to be a festive food. Back home, we held festivals every year to celebrate the 7 deities of fortune, you see. My, such festive deities. Yeah, they're a real festive bunch. The 7 different fillings represent the 7 deities, and when we wrap them into ihomaki, it's like we're capturing their luck. A food filled to the brim with good luck. That's ihomaki. As Subaru explains this last point, his foot dramatically planted on the table, Rem once again claps modestly. Finished listening, Rigel raises his face. With delinquent's eyes that rival Subaru's in sharpness, Rigel glares at his festive parents. So after all that fanfare, we're just gonna eat sushi rolls? I don't see what the big deal is. Foolishly foolish fool. Yow. How's a finger flick so strong? After chastising his cheeky son with a whip-like finger flick to the forehead, Subaru grabs the agony-stricken Rigel and forcibly gives him a shoulder ride. Why are you suddenly carrying me? Just felt like it, really. Anyway, I'll admit that compared to the bin-tossing festival, the ihomaki challenge seems a bit plain. But actually, I neglected to mention a few more points. Forgive me, my son. Don't bow while I'm on your shoulders. Cut it out. I'm falling. With the flailing Rigel's very life at his mercy, Subaru makes purposefully dizzying laps around the dining table. As father and son engage in such light-hearted roughhousing, Rem looks on with an affectionate, motherly gaze. So then, what else is left to explain, Subaru-kun? Well, first of all, what do you think the Aho of ihomaki means? I haven't explained that yet, after all. The way it's written, Aho means the compass of fortune. Every year, we have a lucky direction, like /north or south. So they're called ihomaki because we face that direction while we eat them. Rem sees now. A compass of fortune, what a fun idea. Also, you can't speak while you eat an ihomaki. It's just a saying though, so don't split hairs over it. They also say you should eat it with a smile, but actually, that sounds like a good one. They do say fortune comes to those who smile. Besides, you naturally smile while eating something good. As Subaru grins widely at his own explanation, Rem cheerfully adds, when Subaru-kun eats the food Rem makes, Subaru-kun always has such a big smile. Delicious food and a cute wife. Spending time at home with my beloved family, how could I not smile? It's like I'm hogging the entire world's happiness for myself. With Rem, it would be 2 people hogging. Actually, the whole family is hogging the world's happiness. Rem. Subaru-kun. Don't flirt around with people riding on your head. Mom too. Restrain yourself a little while holding Spiker. As Subaru and Rem flirt, totally oblivious of their children, Rigel's impatience boils over and explodes. In the Natsuki household, conversations tend to sidetrack and go nowhere fast. Almost like another festival, it's a regular event that simply can't be helped. After Subaru finally puts Rigel down, Rem hands Spiker over to her son. An astonished Rigel watches as his parents lovingly take a seat beside each other. Tightly holding Subaru's hand, Rem lets her small body rest against his shoulder. By the way, if the ihomaki. If it's the compass of fortune, which direction should it point in this year? Does Subaru-kun know? Nah, I honestly have no clue. Even now, I wonder how they figured it out every year. It might have had something to do with feng shui, but that's way beyond what I know. Leveraging his knowledge from before being summoned, Subaru makes a living as a successful producer of sorts. Though he can take a smattering of knowledge and somehow stretch it thin, he can't do anything when completely clueless. While Subaru prepared the ihomaki successfully, the all-important lucky direction eluded him. Tilting his head in puzzlement, his eyes wander toward Rigel and Spiker. Suddenly, an idea forms in Subaru's head, and he claps his hands together. I got it. This year's lucky direction, we'll let Spiker decide it. Huh? Let Spiker decide? Think a little before you speak. Spiker's still small and cute, and you already want to corrupt her. God, it's just too pitiful. Hey you, are you going to take responsibility for Spiker's tarnished future, huh? Man, whenever the conversation turns to Spiker, you act like the world's most obnoxious delinquent. With Rigel violently opposing his father's idea, Subaru thinks of how to pacify him. Listen. What would you say is the clearest symbol of happiness in our home? Of course, Rem's very existence is happiness itself, and your natural-born talent as a verbal punching bag is like a blessing granted to me by God, a fateful meeting of fortune and destiny. Wait, I just heard something I can't ignore. Hey. Rigel, please calm down. Just as Rem is a symbol of happiness to Subaru-kun, Subaru-kun is a symbol of happiness to Rem. Your mother doesn't have any sort of misunderstanding about that, so please don't worry. Anyone with eyes would know not to worry over that. Rigel plugs Spiker's ears as he shouts at his parents, his so-called secret technique. Born and raised in the Natsuki household, in Rigel's short lifetime of a mere 8 years, much like a one-trick pony, he developed potential in but a single talent. Yes, his natural straight man act and his prodigious victim character. Doesn't that make him a two-trick pony? What kind of monologue are you having? Get back to the topic. Well, what I mean is, Spiker is the clearest symbol of happiness we have. That's why, whichever direction Spiker chooses will definitely be lucky. How's that? Shit, compared to Dad's usual nonsense, that's a pretty flawless, watertight argument, TCH. Whenever Spiker gets involved, you completely lose your sense of judgment, don't you? Frustrated, Rigel ruffles his short blue hair. But with his eventual approval, the specifics of the ihomaki challenge were finalized. Since Subaru prepared the sushi rolls in advance, the last task was to divine the lucky direction. Having Spiker decide seems fine, but how should we go about it? Spiker probably won't understand anything we tell her. Let's see. How about we let Spiker sleep on the table, and when she wakes up, we'll go with the first direction she looks. When she wakes up, first direction she looks. Considering Subaru's impassioned speech from before, it was a rather casual way of deciding. Rem and Rigel look at each other, then down at Spiker. They seem to be mulling over something. In other words, we decide based on who Spiker loves the most. Is what Subaru-kun means, yes? I guess? Rem's overthinking startles Subaru, but he realizes she's not exactly wrong. The first person Spiker lays eyes on, in other words, the person this defenseless baby depends on most, unexpectedly, the lucky direction will be decided in a battle for Spiker's love. Well, unfortunately for you two, it's obviously going to be me. I'm the breadwinner of this household after all. Spiker must realize it's thanks to her amazing dad that she enjoys the necessities of life. Even though she's still a baby, I'm sure this clever child is already dreaming of becoming my wife someday. Please wait a moment. While Rem does indeed plan to teach Spiker about Subaru-kun's greatness and splendidness, this and that are two different matters. After all, from whom does Spiker receive her milk, and in whose breasts does she so peacefully rest? This child surely knows. Rem is clearly the winner here. You two just butt out. I'm obviously the one Spiker relies on the most. In this weird, unreasonable household, I've abandoned anything and everything to protect her. Spiker loves me most, definitely. A three-way standoff, with no one yielding Spiker's love. They stare each other down fiercely, daggers in their eyes as they compete for her. The peaceful mood from before feels like a lie. Ooh, as sparks fly, Spiker rouses in Rigel's arms. With the baby about to wake up at any second, the trio look each other in the eyes. Ihomaki moved. Pillow set. Spiker set. Subaru takes the Ihomaki off the table, Rem places a cushion onto it, and Rigel plops Spiker onto the cushion. From there, the three nod, splitting off in different directions. On top of the cushion, Spiker rouses from her slumber, her head shaking gently, her small hands rubbing at her eyes. So cute. Like an angel. Holding their breath, they wait to see who Spiker turns to. Eventually, her eyes pop open, and her light blue eyes dart around the room. Ah, oh ye ah. Seeing Spiker extend her hand out to him, a victorious Rigel falls to his knees in dramatic cheer. The chosen Rigel yells with pure joy. Meanwhile, the forgotten Subaru and Rem fail to hide their disappointment as they snuggle up to each other. Well, when you think about it, the person who rests most peacefully in your breasts is me. I guess this match was over before it started. Even if Spiker wanted to be Subaru-kun's wife, that spot is already Rem's territory, and she will never budge an inch from it. It was an expected result. Would you guys just celebrate my victory? Don't get all mushy in front of your damn kids. Rigel scolds his parents as Spiker mischievously pulls on his face. Seeing his usual attitude, his parents burst into laughter. Eventually, Subaru takes note of where Rigel stood. Looks like Rigel was in front of the entranceway. Alright, that's our lucky direction. Everyone, take your Ihomaki and let's go. Yes, Subaru-kun. But which Ihomaki is Rem's? Did Subaru-kun prepare one especially for her? This one's yours, Rem. I made it with a sakura filling that forms a heart shape when it's rolled up. I went through a lot to pull it off, and I had to eat the failures, so I'm already stuffed. Subaru's belly appears noticeably rounder than usual. Rem extends her hand toward it and rubs it lovingly. Subaru-kun looks so wonderful when he does his best for Rem. All right, to the entranceway, damn it, the entranceway. As for mine, I'll just take whatever. Also, what are we doing about Spikers? She barely even has her baby teeth. It'll be no joke if she chokes on the seaweed or something. Did you even think about that? Rigel searches for a roll that the young Spiker could possibly eat. However, the overprotective brother fails to find anything. To Subaru as well, being unable to prepare anything for her was a major regret. I tried a lot of things like melting the seaweed, but the tests didn't go too well. It's unfortunate, but Rigel will just have to eat twice as much to satisfy the 7 deities. How the hell am I supposed to eat 2 of these gigantic things? You're expecting way too much from me. Oh, I see. Yeah, I get it now. I guess even with Spiker's happiness on the line, you're the kind of brother who can't even make the effort to push his stomach a tiny little bit.
That's okay, I'll do my best.
You just keep deceiving Spiker with your shallow, superficial love. I get it. I'll eat them both. No, please let me eat them both. Hey, don't pop out your horn over something like this. After taunting him with Spiker, a short horn protrudes from Rigel's forehead. He quickly grabs 2 Futamaki and makes for the entranceway. Subaru and Rem laugh heartily as they follow after him. Silence dominates the entranceway. While many rules about Ihomaki exist, the most popular, widespread rule is undeniably one may not speak while eating Ihomaki. Since Ihomaki is eaten to take in fortune, opening your mouth would be like letting that fortune escape, is probably the case, Subaru decides. To that end, the trio sit in their entranceway, nomming at their Ihomaki while staring blankly at the front door. Determined to finish their rolls, they eat in complete silence. Knock knock, pardon Natsuki-san, I'm comin' in. While they sit in the entranceway, their front door suddenly opens. Perhaps due to old Kuraragai customs, since long ago, this rural town had a culture of being shockingly laid back and neighborly. Almost no one locks their doors, and people would suddenly come inside to greet each other like it was perfectly natural. The voice from just now belongs to a middle-aged woman, one of their many neighbors. We're passin' around this week's neighborhood notice. Was hopin' you could take a look, says the woman, flyers in hand. But upon seeing the entire household sitting in their entranceway, nibbling at taimaki while silently staring at her, the woman's eyes grow wide like saucers. But, quickly nodding, she leaves the flyers on their shoe cabinet. Well, looks like y'all are busy, so maybe later. Take a look and pass it on, will ya? Oh my, Spiker's such a cutie today. Smiling at a waving Spiker, the woman leaves with a brief toodaloo. They wordlessly see her off with nods and hand waves. Once gone, the four return to sitting in complete silence. What the hell was that scene? Unable to bear it any longer, Rigel suddenly jolts up, shouting against the absurdity. Why did our neighbor accept it like it was totally natural? Do the neighbors just assume we're a bunch of nutcases? I feel like an idiot for freaking out over Dad's shenanigans. Am I the weird one here? Fuga. Calm down, Rigel. I know how you're feeling right now. Sometimes, when something feels off, you wonder if the problem is with you or the world itself. But it's almost always the case that you left home with your right shoe on your left foot or something. No. You're wrong. I'm not a nutcase. It's the world that's gone mad. As Rigel raves on, a giggling Spiker excitedly claps her hands together. To Spiker, the sight of her brother writhing in frustration is her greatest plaything. To already recognize the best way to enjoy Rigel at such a young age, this girl's future feels extraordinarily bright. Also, because you started talking, I failed the Ihomaki challenge too. Damn, I really want to succeed at least once. There's plenty of rolls left, but at this rate. That's weird too. You said I only had to eat 2 of them, but now you and I have to finish them all off ourselves. What about Mom? You idiot, we can't let Rem force herself like that. What are you going to do if these carb-heavy bombs of rice and sugar destroy Rem's figure? Even after having 2 kids, the fact that she's as slim as ever is a bona fide miracle. Compared to her, our weights are just mere numbers. Nom nom. Rem is finished. Also, if Subaru-kun says it like that, Rem will get shy. With a flushed, embarrassed-looking face, Rem declares her completion. With her serious, goal-oriented attitude, Rem's chances of clearing the Ihomaki challenge were exceedingly high. On the other hand, with their whimsical, impatient natures, Subaru and Rigel fail over and over. Finally, 1 massive roll and 1 smaller roll remain. These Ihomaki are our very last chance. After all that squabbling and prep work, we can't let it all go to waste. Let's do our best, Rigel. I'm almost at my limit. I'll remember this, shitty dad. Good luck. Subaru gives a thumbs up as Rigel faces off against the smaller Ihomaki. Rem, having finished long ago, snuggles up to Subaru. By the way, this event doesn't seem to involve Oni. Rem has many objections to the Oni abuse in the bin tossing festival, but not involving them feels somewhat lonely. They don't have to be completely uninvolved, do they? The 7 fillings represent the 7 deities, but you could also say they're like sealed Oni. Maybe the red filling could be the red Oni, and the blue filling could be the blue Oni. Do the Ihomaki even have a blue filling? Well, sometimes vegetables are called blue-green and... Is that too much of a stretch? Hearing about the blue Oni and thinking it was her, Rem wears a somewhat dissatisfied face. Then again, with nothing blue to use as filling, it simply couldn't be helped. Smiling wryly at Rem's scornful eyes, Subaru spins the last Ihomaki in his hands. But if we think of the fillings as Oni instead of deities, it'd be like exterminating the Oni by eating them. I guess even here, the Oni get antagonized. Does Subaru-kun's hometown hold some sort of grudge against Oni? Well, a bunch of stories talk about rampaging Oni and such. But it's not like I feel that way. The story about the red and blue Oni is my all-time favorite. And of course, my wife is an Oni too. So it's the same deal as the bin-tossing festival. The same deal? Rem asks with a curious look on her face. Yeah, the same deal. For me, eating the Oni is the same as taking in happiness. If anything, they'd become my flesh and blood, in a sort of I won't let you go way. Will Rem be caught? I'll catch you for sure. While Rem's face beams with happiness, Subaru's looks explicitly lewd. To their side, Rigel ignores them as he finishes his ihomaki in silence. All right, I ate it. I ate it all, damn it. Hey, did you guys see that? Deepest apologies. Don't apologize so honestly. Damn it, I already knew, I was watching while I ate. Sulking, Rigel picks up Spiker and rubs cheeks with her. Seeing her brother so heartbroken, Spiker pats his back as if comforting him. Well then, for the finale, the family head will show what he's got. Yes. Rem looks forward to seeing Subaru-kun's cool side. With Rem cheering him on, Subaru challenges the final sushi roll, a true monstrosity, ihomaki grand. Subaru had slapped together all the remaining ingredients into this last roll. While it technically still had 7 different fillings, frankly speaking, it was less an ihomaki and more like a biological weapon. No, but practically unhinging his jaw, Subaru bites into the ihomaki, taking the first blow in their epic battle. Having already failed numerous times, Subaru's stomach is dangerously close to its limit. It could burst apart at any moment, a truly cruel and miserable death. Even then, as a man, as a father, there comes a time when one must fight. Nom dash? While Subaru takes on the battle of his life, Rem circles around to assist him. Smiling slightly, she noms at the opposite side of the ihomaki. In accordance with the rules, Subaru has no way to stop her. Rem had anticipated this, intent on waging war against the final ihomaki right alongside him. With his wife's support, Subaru felt the strength of 10,000 allies pushing him on. But even while borrowing Rem's power, as a man, Subaru has to show her his own strength. He pushes himself to lighten her burden by eating even just a tiny bit more. As Subaru and Rem press on, the ihomaki between them grows shorter and shorter. Before long, their faces close in, then finally their lips, hold it. Bam! At the very last second, Rigel splits the sushi roll with a karate chop. With his horn protruding, Oni powers massively amplify the sharpness of Rigel's chop. It wields more than enough strength to cleanly cut into the ihomaki's rice and seaweed. With the sushi roll suddenly split in two, Subaru and Rem part their startled faces. Quickly finishing off their ends of the roll, they confront their son. Hey, Rigel. We were about to have a beautiful finale right there. That's right, Rigel. Subaru-kun and Rem were working on a very important collaborative effort. Does Rigel have some sort of complaint about his mother and father getting along? Hell yeah, I do. You're always getting along way more than necessary. And I'm always trying to tell you to get across my feelings. Sorry, deflected. Don't deflect them. As if swatting away Rigel's projected thoughts, Subaru cheekily slaps at the air. On the other hand, an indignant Rem presses rather forcefully against Rigel's horn. With a pitiful yelp, he collapses in a heap. Karate chopping food, Rem doesn't remember raising such a bad child. And to not only interrupt, but to interrupt at the last second, Rem hardly thinks this is sufficient punishment. I wonder if all the demi-humans have weak points like this. Spiker, if your horn grows in, you can't let anyone but your precious person handle it, all right? Retrieving Spiker from a collapsed Rigel, Subaru lectures her in his arms. Spiker blinks at his words and rubs her forehead. As if to say that even if they did grow, her family would still love her. As expected of Spiker, our family's greatest treasure. With a single move, she puts us all in bliss. Oddly enough, her simplest actions feel even more effective than the ihomaki. Subaru kisses Spiker's forehead, then hands her off to Rem. He then slings the agony-stricken Rigel over his shoulder and proceeds to spank him. So, after we clean the kitchen, how about we go back to talking about our date? Rem agrees. Also, while there's still quite some time left, what would Subaru-kun like for dinner? I've had my fill. I'm totally stuffed. With a strained laugh, Subaru heads to the living room. Rem walks alongside him with a heartfelt smile. On this day as well, they enjoy a rather uniquely shaped happiness. Today is Setsubun, a slightly special day that comes every year, once a year. If Chapter 4 Natsuki Rigel. Rem's birthday and Setsubun are here once more. By our powers combined, let's make these days amazing. On February 2nd, self-decided, the first signs of a storm brewed in the Natsuki household. And as usual, the one brewing it is the head of the household, Natsuki Subaru. We'll do it as a family. You'll help me, won't you, Rigel? Subaru gives a thumbs up, flashing a blindingly bright smile. The young boy sighs deeply at his father's pose, an unchildlike sternness on his face. Bearing his mother's beautiful blue hair and his father's menacing eyes, 9-year-old Natsuki Rigel laments his very existence. As he tries focusing on homework, Subaru anxiously shifts about, awaiting his reply. Dad's lost it again. That's way too harsh. You skipped past that's kinda weird, and went straight to my dad's borderline insane territory. Plus, my request isn't too harebrained this time, is it? If anything, it's brimming with love. That blinding love of yours is what terrifies me. After living here for almost 10 years, even I know to avoid it. With a cold stare and an even colder tone, Rigel pushes back an encroaching Subaru. In the first place, he continues. Mom's birthday aside, all I've gotten out of that Setsubun thing is crippling trauma. Isn't it just been tossing and sushi eating? What's so great about that weirdo fest? Hey, don't call it a weirdo fest. Yeah, on the surface it's kind of a weird event, but like I said, there's kind of a meaning and purpose to it. You could say it's the Setsubun that's kept our family safe from misfortune, after all. What about all my suffering? What about that misfortune? That's not misfortune, that's called daily life. You know, you'll never get anywhere if you focus too much on all the bad things in life. Your stress'll add up too. Don't say it like it's my fault. I'm just a victim of my shitty dad's nonsense. Rigel slams the table and flies up, fuming. He points outside the window with a finger. In front of their house, numerous flyers with the headline, "Come Celebrate Setsubun," are pasted onto a magic street lamp. They list date and time, details, and the organizer's name. That weirdo fest, you're the one drumming it up into some bizarre town-wide event, right? Your name's even listed as the organizer. I thought I would die of embarrassment at school today. Well, it's a natural extension of my talents as a producer. Come on, now you can proudly boast something like my dad's the hero of my household. Maybe if the event wasn't about smashing beans into my face. Rigel rips yet another flyer off a nearby wall. He points to a section below practices, purpose, details, and the event date of February 3rd, self-decided. According to the flyer, Oni will run around the neighborhood being chased all day. And acting as their representative will be Natsuki Rigel. Don't sell out your son without permission. What are you, an Oni? You're the Oni, and so is my wife, and well, I can't let Rem do something this crazy. That's why, I'll swallow my tears and send off my dear son. What are you, an Oni? No, you're definitely an Oni. Calm down. It's not like everyone's out for blood. Plus, you might be the representative, but there'll be other Oni. I'll be helping out too. Seeing Subaru's bold, undaunted face, Rigel gives in. In the first place, they've already fought this battle countless times since the event's announcement. Each time, Rigel was utterly defeated, and the day of the event creeped ever closer. Now, there was simply no running or turning back. While his role was forced onto him, Rigel felt obligated to fulfill it. Such is the level-headed Natsuki Rigel's harsh way of life. An event's an event. Just take it like a man. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. Mom's birthday, right? Exactly. As Subaru snaps his fingers, Rigel turns away. By some twist of fate, the hectic Setsubun and the birthday of his mother, Natsuki Rem, are only a day apart, grandly celebrating with his mother on the first day, then tasting a glimpse of hell on the next. This was their annual schedule. We can't properly celebrate Mom's birthday like this. I won't deny that it's a jam-packed schedule, but enjoying 2 great days in a row is a blessing. Come on, be more optimistic. Positive thinking. / we can't properly celebrate Mom's birthday like this. Huh? Déjà vu? Déjà vu my ass. Unmoved by his father's speech, Rigel's answer remains the same, right down to the syllable. I know you're pretty tense about the Setsubun. But that's no reason to make light of Rem's birthday. It only comes once a year, you know. Won't Rem be sad? So let's switch gears here. I know you can do it. Dash. 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 Rigel takes some time to accept. But arguing won't get him any more, and dispiriting Subaru is borderline impossible. Rigel's only choice is to obediently concede. So, you wanna talk about Mom's birthday present, right? Right. You see, this year's a pretty big milestone. It'll be 10 years since we got married, after all. We actually don't have a specific day for the anniversary, so I wanted to celebrate it along with her birthday. That's why I decided to do something special this year. Well, that sounds all right to me. Honestly, Mom'll probably be happy no matter what Dad does. But for once, I'm pretty on board with this. Right? So, here's the meat of it. With the smile of a scheming child, Subaru beckons his son over. Rigel frowns, an ominous feeling hanging over him. But while he hesitates, Subaru waves for him over and over. In the end, a reluctant Rigel sighs as he lends an ear. For our 10th anniversary, I've actually prepared something really special. I already ordered it too, so no worries there.
Gem. Well, okay.
I've been steadily building up my secret stash, all for this day, and the result is something to behold. Listen and be amazed, it's a gemstone. Whoa, a gemstone. Be amazed, his father said. But with Subaru's gift actually turning out respectably amazing, Rigel was doubly amazed. As a rule, no matter what he does, Subaru always overcomplicates things and makes a great, chaotic mess. But for once, that doesn't seem to be the case. A gemstone, huh? Looking back, Rigel's mother, Natsuki Rem, doesn't dress herself up very much. This wasn't a matter of household finance, but rather, a matter of character. Rigel has always been secretly proud of his exceedingly beautiful mother. But her reluctance to wear jewelry and fancy clothes was a source of his discontent. They weren't necessarily poor either. She just doesn't particularly care to adorn herself. And yet, without any regard for dignity nor honor, Rem is shamelessly attached to Subaru. To Rigel's dismay, if it's a present from Subaru, Rem will always accept it. Thus, Rigel immediately approves of a gemstone as his father's gift to his mother. That's really great. Hell, you really can do it if you try. Yeah, that's right. I'm the type that just needs to try and... Huh? What the heck? Doesn't it sound like you're the parent here? Forget about it. What's important is Mom's gift, right? Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, of course. What's important is Rem's gift. Well, I knew I had the right idea, but I'm confident now that you've approved. With a spirited fist bump, Subaru and Rigel nod to each other. Wriggles then wonders about his mother's gift, especially with his father's questionable tastes. So, what's the gemstone like? Knowing Dad, I'm worried you found some weirdo craftsman to make it. Oh my god. My stock rose and fell within seconds. But about that. Now we're getting to the important part. Listen carefully, my son. Ugh. Rigel groans at his father's gravely serious face. When Subaru has this serious look, and the playfulness in his voice vanishes, one must be extremely careful. He'll definitely spit out something troublesome. This was the trust cultivated between Rigel and his father for the past 10 years. And once again, this trust will not be betrayed. As a fearful Rigel wrinkles his face into a scowl, Subaru whispers, "The merchant carrying Rem's gemstone, his dragon carriage ran into some trouble and hasn't arrived. There's talk that he might even head back, so I'm going out to get it myself. Are you gonna make it by the end of the day?" "Well, I'll be chasing after them full throttle, of course. But, honestly, I'm not sure." Fingers twiddling, gaze dropping, voice lowering. Seeing his father like this, Rigel slaps his forehead. "If you're that worried, why not forget the gemstone for now? Birthday present aside, if Dad's not here, Mom'll be way more sad." I know that, but I have to give her this present today. It'd be meaningless otherwise, I think. That's just selfish, he wanted to say, but Rigel's words stopped short. Subaru scratches his head, a pitiful, bittersweet smile on his face. But beneath, a maelstrom of hard, indescribable feelings swirls about. Just from looking, Rigel feels its pull sweeping him away. From the depths of Subaru's soul, tucked away with the greatest of care, Rigel could feel the faint traces of an important something. It was the irreplaceable bond his parents shared. Comma cutting in would be wrong, Rigel decides. With a sigh, he too scratches his head. "So, after revealing all this, what do you want from me? Will you hear me out, Rigel? You're practically forcing me to. Spit it out or I'll look like some scumbag who can't read the atmosphere." "I'm saved." With Rigel's reluctant acceptance, an ecstatic Subaru grabs him by the hands, swinging up and down, to and fro. Rigel scowls, but Subaru just keeps smiling back. "I'm going out to retrieve the gemstone. I'll definitely be back in time, but you need to give Rem some excuse while I'm gone. Even if you screw up, don't talk about the present. It'll ruin the surprise. If Dad's not around for Mom's birthday, I think that'll be more than enough surprise. Even then. Anyways, I'm heading out now. The rest's up to you." After forcing his trust onto Rigel, Subaru grabs his luggage and rockets out the front door. Like the wind, he furiously tumbles down the street, making for the town gate. From there, he'll likely mount an earth dragon and chase after the jeweler. Is he gonna make it back in time? Just barely, according to Subaru. But Rigel figures he's more likely to fail than succeed. In his absence, it's up to Rigel to defend the Natsuki household from devastation. But with Rem's endless devotion to her husband, Rigel can already see his mother shaking and trembling. Is this gonna be a bloodbath? Trembling with fear, Rigel anxiously waits for his mother's return, all the while praying for his father to come home even a second sooner. Fortunately, Rem's reaction wasn't nearly the catastrophe Rigel imagined. Compared to the worst-case scenario, she was utterly composed. "So you see, there was some trouble at work, or something. They needed Dad over because, they really depend on him and..." "Wait, do they?" "They do, right? Well, assuming they do, he apparently went off to sorta help them, I think." Why does Rigel sound so uncertain? Really, at almost 10 years old, you should at least house sit and relay messages properly. Honestly. Returning from shopping and the local neighborhood meeting, Rem is welcomed home by her son. With no time to prepare, Rigel clumsily explains Subaru's absence. Luckily, Rem doesn't particularly doubt him, nor does she pout. But on the other hand, she clearly disapproves of his shoddy explanation. Despite appearances, Rem is actually quite the despotic mother. It's a well-kept family secret that Subaru is in fact the more lenient of the two. So Subaru-kun had to go out. That's too bad. For lunch today, Rem planned to make all of Subaru-kun's favorite foods. Bearing her shopping bag, a slightly lonely Rem droops her eyebrows. Suddenly, a sense of duty burns and rages within Rigel. No matter what, he can't let his mother be sad. As a man, Rigel puts his all into everything, even roles forced onto him. You could say his very nature was a tragedy. Dad's favorites, huh? That's a shame. Wait, didn't you say the same thing yesterday? I feel like we had all his favorites yesterday too. Yes. And tomorrow and the day after, and the day before yesterday and even the day before that, It's all Subaru-kun's favorite foods. Home cooking aside, that's some extreme favoritism. Day in, day out, Rem dedicates every single meal to Subaru's tastes. Realizing this, Rigel can't help but cry out. No, no, Rem replies, shaking her head, please don't worry. Subaru-kun's favorites are also Rigel's and Spiker's favorites. After all, has Rem ever made anything that you two didn't like? Well, now that I think about it, I guess not. But is it even possible for a whole family to like the same things? I mean, doesn't everyone have different tastes? That's because when Rigel was just a baby, Rem endlessly whispered Subaru-kun's favorites to him as he slept, brainwashing him into liking them too. Please tell me you're joking? Yes, that was just a joke. Rigel should take better care not to fall for things like this. Rigel's eyes are wide as saucers from this devastating truth. Seeing him, a giggly Rem playfully sticks out her tongue. Then, smoothing down her long, blue hair, Rem calls them Subaru-kun's favorites, but the truth is that Subaru-kun always says delicious to Rem's cooking. So Rigel doesn't need to worry. Well, alright. But doesn't that make your efforts kinda pointless? Not at all. Subaru-kun always says delicious, but when he really loves something, his tone changes, and his cheeks move a bit differently. They're cuter than usual. Foo-foo. Rigel can't decide whether his mother's detailed observations make her charming, or a little scary. He lets out a vague, strained laugh as Rem smiles blissfully. She then hands Spiker over and carries the groceries to the kitchen. Seriously, your big bro's drowning in anxiety over here, but you're as carefree as ever, huh? Ah? Don't me, you. Oh, you're too cute, Spiker. With the goofy affection of an older brother, Rigel rubs cheeks with Spiker. While naive to the world, Spiker still loves his doting and affection. She smiles and giggles as if being tickled. After savoring Spiker's smile to his heart's content, Rigel takes her with him to the kitchen. Before them, Rem is putting away the day's groceries. So then, Rigel, when did your father say he'll be home? Oh, well, I think he said he might take a while. But he said he'll try his best to hurry back. Since, he's got a reason to hurry today. Rigel immediately regrets saying too much. Subaru's trip and Rem's birthday are topics he desperately had to avoid. And yet, with every clumsy step, a dumbfounded Rigel digs his grave ever deeper. Woefully unaware of his can't tell a lie to save my life personality, Rigel quickly covers his mouth. Mimicking him, Spiker puts her small hands up to her own mouth. So cute. But this isn't the time to dote. Is that so? He might take a while. How troubling. Though Rem understands why he would hurry. Without turning around, Rem continues stocking the shelves. But Rigel looks on in worry. Her voice is the same as always, but she might actually be on the verge of tears, ready to fall to her feet from the shock. In Rigel's mind, Rem is a strong woman, but she has some very fatal weak points. And those weak points invariably have to do with Natsuki Subaru. In the first place, from her words, she's probably already realized that Subaru's preparing for her birthday. Unlike Subaru, Rem is unusually perceptive and actually capable of reading the atmosphere. Rigel wonders if there's really any point to all this deception. Mom, listen. The more he thinks it over, the more it wears on his nerves. Honest to a fault, Rigel's resolve grows weaker and weaker. It's about Dad, but, well, don't think too badly of him. Isn't that obvious? Rem would never think badly of Subaru-kun for going out to work. He's working hard for his family, after all. But well, the situation's a bit different this time, as expected. Rigel was also worried about that. Turning around, Rem finds her son with an uneasy expression on his face. She smiles back fondly, as if understanding everything from that one look. Feeling he's been completely seen through, Rigel silently apologizes to Subaru. But to think that, in a mere 30 minutes, he would already taste defeat. Shamefully coming to grips with his loss, Rigel realizes he no longer needs to lie. The guilt of keeping secrets from family dissipates, the thought of coming clean lightens his heart. In the end, you just have to be honest. There isn't a shred of doubt. Please don't worry. Rem is a little uneasy as well. But if it's Subaru-kun, there's nothing to worry about. I don't know if I believe in him that strongly, but yeah, I guess that's good. Yes. Rem doesn't exactly understand his intentions, but she did her best to prepare to Subaru-kun's instructions. If anything, Subaru-kun entrusting Rem with this task is a sign of his faith in her. Rem feels inspired to do her best, huh? Tightening her hands, Rem makes a guts pose. Rigel secretly likes this childish habit of hers, but right now, it stirs a sense of anxiety in him. Their conversation, it seems to flow, and yet it doesn't. Hold on a second. Rigel asks, his head cocked in puzzlement, what are you talking about? Well, of course, preparations for tomorrow's Setsubun event. Rigel will be representing the runaway Oni, after all. An appropriate outfit. Subaru-kun asked Rem to prepare one for Rigel. Rem was hoping Subaru-kun could review the final result. Damn it. I knew it. With both sides of their conversation finally meshing, Rigel's guilt gushes back in full force. Realizing that nothing he said has made it across, he can't help but wail in frustration. Spiker, still held carefully in his arms, looks to her brother's wrinkled, anguished face. "Oyu," she chirps, mimicking him as she laughs so happily. A few minutes later, standing before a mirror is Natsuki Rigel, newly reborn. As expected, Subaru-kun's judgment was flawless. Rem is so moved. Rem nods, deeply satisfied with her work. In her arms, Spiker gazes at her brother with a pair of sparkling eyes. The being standing before them is a perfect reproduction. Pants made from a yellow fabric, spotted with black lightning bolts coming down in vertical stripes. For his upper body, a vest sewn from the same yellow fabric. On his feet, a Kararagai specialty, wooden clogs. In his hands, he grips a metallic-looking club made from papier-mâché. In his mouth, a pair of fake fangs borrowed from the costume store. And with his hair ruffled a bit more wildly than usual, Rigel was the spitting image of an Oni. With her son perfectly embodying the classic Oni style, a delighted Rem looks on admiringly. Meanwhile, Spiker's eyes brim with heartfelt wonder at her brother's magnificent form. With these two watching over him, the newly reborn Rigel studies himself in the mirror. God, this is awful. My, what is Rigel saying? Doesn't this costume match perfectly with Subaru-kun's sketch? For her fine work, Rem is ready to sing her own praises. This is an Oni? I look more like a barbarian. Mom, as one of the last surviving Oni, doesn't this costume piss you off? No matter how the world perceives Oni, it won't control Rem and Rigel's lives.
It will be okay.
With that said, such a breathtaking costume. Especially those eyes, so wonderfully Oni-like. That's the only part that's real. His parents may have given him this body, but having it praised by those very parents only annoys Rigel. His unexpected reaction vexes Rem, but in all honesty, the one most vexed is Rigel. Delighted by his agitation, a cherry-cheeked Spiker rolls and tumbles with laughter, her voice resounding like bells throughout the house. An Oni vest and Oni pants. An Oni's club and an Oni's eyes. Truly a work of perfection. No, not yet. As the finishing touch, please grow out your horn. With this, the costume will be complete. That's not your business. Not true at all. Rigel is Rem's child. And when it comes to Rigel, Rem's thinking is always serious and sincere. At Rigel's doubtful eyes, Rem speaks back with an utmost seriousness. Overpowered, a reluctant Rigel concentrates his senses to his forehead. As a successor to the Oni bloodline, Rigel possesses the horn of the Oni clan. However, rather than the usual pair, only a single horn grows from his forehead. According to Rem, this was probably due to Rigel's half-Oni blood. Frankly, it didn't bother him very much. However, for only being able to give Rigel a single horn. Rem is sorry, his mother's apology from so long ago. In Rigel's mind, it remains vividly clear. Her apologetic face, that regretful voice, he could never forget them. But Rigel doesn't care how many horns he has. Whether there's one or two, a horn's a horn. When he grows it out, his body feels light and easy to move. Rigel considers it a true blessing. Yes, thank you very much. When he answered this way, his mother made a lonely, bittersweet smile. From time to time, Rigel helplessly thinks back to that moment. But since then, he could never find the courage to bring back the topic. They never spoke of his horn again. Supposedly, his mother also has just one horn. Rigel wonders if she ever suffered because of it. Putting those thoughts aside, Rigel concentrates on rousing his Oni blood. From his forehead, the white, pointed tip of a horn begins to emerge. A sharp sensation courses through his forehead like lightning. As it flows to the rest of his body, Rigel feels his limbs brimming with strength. At the same time, a powerful urge throbs deeply within his chest. According to his mother, this was the Oni's natural battle instinct. The instincts roar louder and louder, assaulting his mind. As he basks in this strange but empowering sensation, Rigel holds back the equally powerful battle instincts. In the mirror, his appearance has undergone a clear transformation. Confirming the growth of his horn, Rigel turns back towards Rem and Spiker. How is it? /PFFT. It's very splendid. Splendid, indeed, Rigel. PFFT. Could you give me back my concern? Turning around, Rigel finds his mother desperately stifling her laughter. After witnessing his perfection of the classic Oni style, Rem's cheeks are puffed red. She falls to her knees in a giggling fit. Just moments ago, Rigel was wrought with worry and concern. But with the growth of his own horn turning him into a laughing stock, he realizes it was time and energy wasted. As Rigel droops his shoulders in exhaustion, Rem somehow manages to get back up. Pulling herself together, she wipes away a stray tear. In any case, Rem thinks it's wonderful. Subaru-kun will surely be satisfied, and all the participants will love it too. PFFFT. Fine, I'll make you all regret choosing me to represent the Oni. For the first time in my life, I'll unleash these savage fight instincts sleeping within me. Of course, Rigel is forbidden from causing harm to anyone. If he resorts to violence, Rem will take responsibility and personally subjugate him. Is that clear? For the first time in my life, I'll unleash these savage flight instincts sleeping within me. Adjusting the wording ever so slightly, Rigel corrects his declaration. Seeing a satisfied Rem nod back, he sighs, looking in the mirror. I can see why you'd like it, but
is this really okay?
Won't this just make the Oni look bad? As a race, the Oni have almost all perished. Even if someone insults us at this point, there's little use in worrying over it. Incidentally, the setting for this event has Rigel as the chieftain of a ferocious, bloodthirsty Oni tribe. If the townsfolk fail to repel them, the tribe will instigate an atrocious mass killing, painting the town ruins into a true scene from hell. Is the planned development. They really are barbarians. Do they even need to be Oni? Oni are excellent for playing the villain role, is what Subaru-kun said. While indifferent to the Oni's dignity, Rem seems reluctant to continue their talk. The near eradication of the Oni clan is common knowledge. And yet, Rigel has never heard Rem talk about it in any real detail. Thinking back, he's never heard much about his parents' romance and past either. Well, hearing about it will just wear me out anyway. Sometimes, from his parents, from Subaru and Rem, he has this strange feeling, as if something's off or out of place. Whether it's helping with his homework, or celebrating weird festivals, scraps of knowledge from some unknown place would pop up from time to time. There were all sorts of mysterious odds and ends. Every time he catches a glimpse at his parents' past, Rigel feels oddly vexed. At any rate, between his parents, there were traces of an education that they couldn't quite conceal. Rigel guesses that these two received a respectable education from somewhere. As their son, the thought fills him with pride. And yet, seeing his parents hide their secret at all costs, this pride is tangled with resentment. Rigel wonders if, someday, he'll be able to hear their story. But well, I doubt they'll tell me any time soon. Coming to this conclusion, Rigel sets aside his suspicions for now. Oblivious to her son's inner turmoil, Rem clasps her hands with an enthusiastic now. Let's put away the costume and prepare for tomorrow. It's too bad that Subaru-kun couldn't personally check on it, but Rem will leave that for tomorrow as something to look forward to. Am I really running around in this tomorrow? Other Oni besides Rigel will be wearing the same outfit, so there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Though the only real Oni will be Rigel, of course. As he pulls his arms out from the vest and changes his pants, Rigel grows anxious over tomorrow's event.
Wanting to encourage him, Rem gently brushes her beloved son's shoulder. It will be okay.
Rigel is Rem's and Subaru-kun's proud son, after all. Well, being mom's son is fine, but having to be dad's son is. If anything, that part should be a source of relief. On the other hand, Rem's blood flowing in Rigel's veins, Rem worries and worries that it'll cause him nothing but trouble. Aren't you undervaluing yourself here? It's a bad habit of hers. Rem loves Subaru and sees him in almost too good of a light, and yet, while not quite self-deprecating, she's undeniably too hard on herself. I don't know how convincing it is coming from me, but I don't think mom's blood ever caused me any problems. Like I said, it's dad's blood that's got me worried. These scary eyes aside, I feel like I'm inheriting his evilness. Those eyes are wonderful. But sometimes girls cry just from looking at me. They're just too young to understand a boy's charm. That stubborn, unyielding faith in others, why does it weaken so much when it comes to herself? Actually, Rigel suspects that Subaru has the very same flaw. But he rarely sees weakness in his father, so he can't quite compare. Putting those thoughts aside for now, as your son, I honestly have no idea why you're so unconfident. I guess, I'll just have to prove it to you. Huh? Tomorrow's event, if I pull it off perfectly, completely, and without a single incident. Then as both mom and dad's son, I'll make you see that there's nothing to worry about. It's been bothering me for a while now. So I've always wanted to prove it to you. Staring back at his wide-eyed mother, Rigel makes his bold declaration. As the loving wife of Natsuki Subaru, and the doting mother of Natsuki Rigel and Natsuki Spiker, Natsuki Rem is a woman who lacks self-confidence. Yet in Rigel's mind, no other woman is so deserving of respect. You're always worried that you can't match up with dad, but I'll show you that that's not even the tiniest, slightest bit true. Rigel. My mom is the greatest mom in the entire world. I just wanted you to see that. Unconfident, yet living so blissfully, but at times, shrinking back in hesitation. Rigel has watched over his mother all this time, wishing that she would live more proudly. Just as she loves her husband and her son and daughter, Rigel wishes she would love herself. Because Subaru and Rigel, and Spiker as well, they all love Rem. Because just as Rem loves them all, they all love Rem back. Looking down on my mom, I won't let anyone do that, not even my mom. Burning with a feverish vigor, Rigel finishes his declaration. But suddenly, he's struck with an awkward situation. What the hell am I saying, looking like this? Having removed the Oni vest and pants, he stands there in nothing but his underwear. Like this, no matter how serious he is, he'll just be treated like a comedy show. After all this time, he finally blasted out everything he wanted to say. But there had to have been a better time to do it. Just now, that was a mistake, he wanted to say, but before he could, suddenly, Rigel's head is entangled between two outstretched arms and abruptly embraced. A tender feeling envelopes his head as a bewildered Rigel darts his eyes about in confusion. He quickly realizes, this is his mother's embrace. Hearing the intense pounding of his mother's heart so close, Rigel's face immediately turns red. He's at the age where being spoiled by his mother is unbelievably embarrassing. The days when she'd hold him like this should be long past. He instinctively wants to pull away. However, Mom comma. Slash feeling the tremble and quiver of the arms cradling him, Rigel freezes in place. He calls out to his mother, but Rem doesn't answer. That's when he realizes, the sound of crying meets his ears. But it isn't the familiar crying of his adorable little sister. While so very similar, this crying comes from someone Rigel has never seen cry before. Quickly realizing its owner, Rigel turns a pale white. What if something he said was unimaginably hurtful? His forceful, impassioned words, if they hurt her, it'd be a mistake that Rigel could never take back. He frantically rings his brain for the right words to say. But he soon realizes that all his fretting and worrying was unnecessary. Shaking her head, a small Rem firmly embraces her even smaller son. The emotion packed into those trembling arms, it wasn't displeasure, nor was it grief. There was only loving affection. Caressed by this affection, Rigel is the first to understand. Returning his sobbing mother's hug with his own, Rigel gently strokes her back. "Don't cry, Mom. If Dad sees, he'll kill me." "That isn't possible." "Why?" Rem is this happy, yet the tears won't stop falling. To think that the mother he's known for almost 10 years is, unexpectedly, such a crybaby. Rigel sighs. Still held by her mother, Spiker looks to her mother and brother embracing, tilting her head. And then Spiker, with her small, autumn-colored hand, as if mimicking her brother, starts stroking her mother's back. Slowly, with a tenderness that could soothe even the biggest crybaby. As happy tears fall from their mother's eyes, the siblings continue stroking her back. In the end, Subaru, who went out to retrieve the gemstone, didn't return while Rigel and Spiker were awake. Tomorrow will be very busy, so Rigel should go to sleep now. "Don't stay up too late since we start early tomorrow." His mother spoke in her usual tone, as if she already forgot how hard she had cried. However, as Rem kisses his forehead to say goodnight, Rigel notices her expression has somehow changed from yesterday's. In the end, they never spoke about her birthday, but at least he kept his promise with Subaru. Rigel decides to leave the rest to his father. In the first place, he didn't have the courage left to spout any more embarrassing words. After all, he just finished blasting out a whole 10 years' worth. Staring at the magic crystal, Rigel counts down the remaining minutes on his fingers. Will Subaru return home in time for Rem's birthday? In Rigel's experience, Subaru will go to absurd lengths to prove his love and devotion to his wife. That's probably why. Even with just 10 minutes left, Rigel isn't at all worried. And in the end, "Rem, I'm home. Sorry I'm late." Subaru rolls and tumbles into the house, a mere 5 minutes before the date changes. Though they technically had just 5 minutes left to celebrate, he still managed to keep his promise. "Subaru-kun, welcome home. But please don't make so much noise. Rigel and Spiker are already asleep. It wouldn't be good to wake them." Sorry. I was just in such a rush." The sound of Rem welcoming, then scolding Subaru, and the sound of a flustered Subaru apologizing back. From his futon, Rigel hears footsteps make their way into the house. Since he went to bed a few hours ago, Rigel has just been tossing and turning. But with this last worry cleared from his mind, he finally feels sleepy. Considering tomorrow's event, just as his mother said, he really should sleep already. Yesterday, he dreaded the Setsubun event, despairing as it came ever closer. But now, Rigel feels like he can look forward to it, just a little. It must be because of the promise he made with his mother. "Rem, I'm really sorry for being late, but there's more I have to say. The work I was out for today, it was more like a personal errand. A really important one." "A personal errand, is it? Was there something special going on?" "There is. Though you probably don't think it's too special." Tilting her head, Rem seems to honestly have no clue. Neglecting herself, another bad habit of hers. Frankly, hiding the present from her might have been totally unnecessary. That's just how indifferent Rem is towards herself. There's only 2 minutes left, but here, take this. It's your birthday present." "Birthday?" At Subaru's stiff words, Rem's cheerful voice abruptly pauses. Finally understanding, she's met with two conflicting emotions. Unsure which to embrace, she stands in bewilderment. Rigel guesses that his mother's eyes are darting about in confusion as his father hands her something. And with Rem still vexed, it's probably Subaru who opens the small box lying in her hands. At the sound of the box opening, Rem peers inside and lets out a small gasp. This is a garnet. At least, I think that's what you'd call it. I've been steadily building my secret stash all for this day. But seriously, I was so worried. Even though it's only meaningful if I gave it to you today, that dragon carriage started heading back halfway. As Subaru recounts his trials, Rem stands wordlessly. Noticing her silence, a wryly smiling Subaru roughly scratches his head. I wanted to give you something definite, something permanent. We've been together for 10 years now. And with your birthday, and Setsubun, I thought this'd be a fitting way to ask, once again, please take care of me.
Is it really okay, for Rem? For Rem to be this blessed, is it really okay?
Hearing her trembling voice, Rigel shifts about, his weary eyes now looking towards them. His parents are in the neighboring room, but Rigel can see them through the half-open sliding door. Subaru and Rem face each other, with Rem's eyes fixated on the red gemstone in her hands. Rem's birthday. She completely forgot about it. Because Rem always believed she had no right to celebrate it. Rem left behind Nay Summer, who was born on the very same day. Even though she knew it was such a terrible thing, but yeah, tell me anything. I'll listen to you. Rem was always worried, if she's allowed to be this happy. That tearful voice, the same one Rigel heard just hours ago. Yet this time, it feels strained with a deep guilt. And from his mother's mouth, the surprise of an unfamiliar word. Nay Summer. But what truly surprises Rigel is that, far beyond what he imagined, his parents' past is heavy and painful. I won't tell you to stop feeling guilty. I know all too well that it isn't possible. Because I feel the same. Yes. But even then, I don't want to think that anything and everything has been bad. Even though we gave up, even if we ran away, the things we obtained after running, I don't want to think badly of them too. Yes. Unimaginable from his usual tone, Subaru's truly serious voice shocks Rigel. And as Rem nods over and over, her voice carries something different as well. Separate from her reliableness as a mother, different from the extreme love and favoritism she shows her husband. Right now, they were merely a man and a woman, sharing in their precious bond and memories. Coming to this town, and having Rigel and Spiker. After all sorts of things happened, now you and I are here. All of that is connected to our happiness. I wanted to prove that to you and give it shape. And that's this gemstone. If it's still too painful for you to accept it, I won't ask you to immediately wear that gemstone. I won't even mind if you put it away somewhere. But please, don't throw it away. I feel like that's the one thing we shouldn't do. Appealing, Subaru takes a step towards the wordless Rem. Carefully reaching out his arms, he embraces Rem and pulls her towards him. Holding her close, Subaru tenderly strokes her head. As he does so, Rem buries her face into his breast, and says with a small voice, "Today, Rigel told Rem." Yeah? He said that Rem is the greatest mother in the world. Yeah. You didn't know? Yes, Rem did not know. Rem carefully repeats Rigel's words, but Subaru swiftly answers back, as if they were the most obvious words in the world. At his immediate reply, Rem wrinkles her face and smiles.